Welcome to Silence the Voice Inside Your Head. There is a voice inside your mind that becomes loudest when you are tired, afraid, or alone. It reminds you of old mistakes, creates problems that have not happened, and convinces you that every fearful thought must be true. But what if that voice is not wisdom? What if it is only fear speaking in your own voice? Overthinking controls your life by making you believe every thought, replay every conversation, and prepare for dangers that may never come. Your body becomes exhausted from fighting battles that exist only inside your mind. This audiobook will help you break negative thought loops, calm mental noise, stop replaying the past, and take back control of your attention. You are not the voice inside your head. You are the one listening to it. And now it is time to stop obeying it. Chapter 1. The most dangerous voice you will ever hear is the one nobody else can hear. Imagine living your entire life with someone who never leaves your side. They are there when you wake up in the morning, when you look in the mirror, when you walk into an important meeting, when you fall in love, when you fail, and when you lie awake at night staring into the darkness. They comment on every decision you make. They question every dream you have. They remind you of every mistake you wish you could forget. They predict failure before you even begin and whisper that you are not ready long before life has the chance to test you. Now imagine that person is not standing beside you. They are living inside your own mind. This is the voice that quietly shapes the lives of millions of people every single day. It is not loud enough for anyone else to hear, yet it has the power to determine your confidence, your relationships, your career, your happiness, and even the direction of your future. It has convinced talented people to abandon their dreams before they ever began. It has destroyed opportunities not because people lacked ability, but because they believed the fearful story playing inside their own heads. The most dangerous prison in the world is not built from iron bars. It is built from thoughts that are never questioned. Many people spend their entire lives believing that because a thought appears inside their mind, it must be true. They never stop to ask where that thought came from, why it appeared, or whether it deserves to be believed. They simply obey it. The voice says you are not good enough, and they stop trying. It says everyone is judging you, and they remain silent. It says if you fail, your life will never recover, and they never take the first step toward the future they secretly long for. The tragedy is that this voice rarely speaks with evidence. It speaks with emotion. It does not present facts. It presents fear. It does not describe reality. It imagines the worst possible version of reality and then repeats it until it feels familiar. Over time, familiarity begins to look like truth. A lie repeated 1,000 times can feel more convincing than a truth heard only once. Think back to a time when you spent hours worrying about something that never happened. Perhaps you imagined losing your job, embarrassing yourself in front of others, receiving terrible news, or being rejected by someone important. Your heart raced, your muscles tightened, sleep became difficult. Your body reacted as though the danger were real. Then the next day arrived. Nothing happened. The mind had created suffering from a future that never existed. This is one of the greatest powers of overthinking. It convinces your body to experience tomorrow's pain today. It steals today's peace by asking you to survive problems that have not yet arrived and may never arrive at all. You begin living in imaginary futures while the real present quietly passes you by. The voice inside your head also has another habit. It collects every painful moment from your past and stores it like evidence in a courtroom. Every failure becomes proof that you will fail again. Every rejection becomes proof that nobody will ever truly choose you. Every criticism becomes proof that you are fundamentally flawed. The mind becomes both the prosecutor and the judge, presenting only the evidence that supports its fearful conclusions while ignoring everything that proves otherwise. It remembers the one person who doubted you but forgets the 10 people who believed in you. It remembers the one mistake you made but ignores the 100 things you did well. It remembers every closed door while refusing to notice the doors that quietly opened, because they did not fit the story fear wanted you to believe. The voice inside your head is selective. It does not tell the whole story. It tells the story that keeps fear alive. Many people believe they are trapped by difficult circumstances, but in reality they are trapped by the interpretation their mind keeps repeating. Two people can experience the same failure. One sees it as evidence that they should give up. The other sees it as a lesson that makes the next attempt wiser. The event is identical. The story is different. Your life is shaped far more by the stories you believe than by the events you experience. This is why two people can stand in the same storm while living completely different emotional realities. One believes the storm proves the journey is over. The other believes the storm is simply part of the journey. One waits for perfect conditions before moving forward. The other keeps walking despite uncertainty. The difference is not courage. The difference is the voice they choose to believe. There is something important you must understand before this journey continues. The voice inside your head was not born the day you were born. It was built. Some of its words came from childhood. Some came from painful experiences. Some came from people who never understood your worth. Some came from moments when you were afraid and promised yourself never to feel that pain again. Little by little, these experiences became beliefs, and those beliefs became the language your mind now speaks every day. Perhaps someone laughed at your dream years ago. The person forgot about it. Your mind did not. Perhaps someone once told you that you would never be successful. They moved on with their life. Your mind kept repeating their words long after they disappeared. Perhaps you failed at something deeply important. The event lasted only a moment. The story has lasted for years. This is why healing does not begin by changing the world around you. It begins by questioning the voice within you. Not every thought deserves your trust. Not every fear deserves your attention. Not every memory deserves another hour of your life. Imagine sitting beside a river and watching leaves float past on the water. Some leaves are green. Some are broken. Some are carried away almost immediately. You notice them, but you do not jump into the river to chase each one. You allow them to continue their journey. Your thoughts can be treated in exactly the same way. A thought arrives. You notice it. You do not have to become it. You do not have to fight it. You do not have to obey it. You simply allow it to pass. This sounds simple, yet it changes everything. The moment you stop believing that every thought deserves a response, the voice inside your head begins losing the authority it once held over your life. Fear continues speaking, but it no longer sits in the driver's seat. Doubt still appears, but it no longer decides your future. The past may still visit your memory, but it no longer builds a home inside your present. There is extraordinary freedom in realizing that the loudest voice in your mind is not necessarily the wisest one. Wisdom rarely shouts. Fear does. Wisdom waits patiently. Fear demands immediate attention. Wisdom asks thoughtful questions. Fear rushes toward catastrophic conclusions. Wisdom helps you grow. Fear keeps you exactly where you are because familiarity feels safer than possibility. Ask yourself honestly, how many opportunities have disappeared because you listened to fear before listening to reality? How many conversations never happened because the voice inside your head convinced you that rejection was certain? How many dreams remain unfinished because your own thoughts became stronger than your own desire? The greatest opportunities are not usually stolen by other people. They are stolen by the conversations we continue having with ourselves. But here is the good news. The same mind that learned these fearful patterns can learn new ones. The same brain that became skilled at overthinking can become skilled at observing. The same inner voice that has spent years criticizing you can slowly become a voice of clarity, discipline, wisdom, and quiet confidence. This transformation does not happen because you force the voice to disappear. It happens because you finally stop believing everything it says. There will still be days when fear returns. There will still be moments when doubt knocks on the door of your mind. The difference is that you will no longer invite it to stay for dinner. You will no longer give it the best seat in your life. You will no longer allow it to make decisions that belong to courage. This is where real freedom begins. Not when the voice disappears forever, but when its words lose the power to define who you are. Today is the first step toward that freedom, not by silencing your mind through force, but by becoming wiser than the voice that has controlled it for far too long. Chapter 2. Your mind is replaying a story that ended long ago. There is a reason you can be enjoying a peaceful afternoon when, without warning, a memory from 5 years ago suddenly appears in your mind. A conversation you thought you had forgotten begins playing again. You remember someone's expression, the words they used, the silence that followed, or the mistake you wish you could erase. Within seconds, your heart feels heavier, your confidence begins to disappear, and it feels as though you have traveled backward in time. The strange part is that nothing around you has changed. The room is still quiet. The people around you are still smiling. The present moment is still safe. Only one thing has changed. Your mind has reopened a chapter of your life that has already ended. This is one of the greatest tricks of overthinking. It does not simply remember the past. It invites you to live inside it again. It convinces your emotions that an old wound is happening right now, even when years have passed. Your body cannot always tell the difference between a real danger and a vividly imagined one. If your thoughts become intense enough, your heart begins racing, your muscles tighten, your breathing becomes shallow, and your nervous system prepares for a battle that no longer exists. Imagine watching the same painful movie every single day. You already know how it ends. You know every scene, every line, every disappointment. Yet each time you press play, your emotions react as though you are seeing it for the very first time. Eventually, you begin believing that movie represents your entire life. This is exactly what many people unknowingly do with their memories. They replay betrayal until they believe nobody can be trusted. They replay failure until they believe success belongs only to other people. They replay embarrassment until they become afraid to speak. They replay rejection until they stop allowing themselves to love. The memory becomes more powerful than reality. The story becomes stronger than the truth. But here is something few people ever realize. Your mind does not replay every memory equally. It chooses the memories carrying the strongest emotional charge. Moments filled with fear, shame, regret, anger, or heartbreak leave deeper footprints inside the brain because your mind believes remembering them will protect you from experiencing the same pain again. It assumes that if it keeps reminding you of what went wrong, you will never make that mistake twice. At first, this seems helpful. Learning from experience is one of the greatest strengths of the human mind. The problem begins when learning quietly transforms into living. Instead of using the past as a teacher, you begin using it as a permanent address. You stop visiting old memories for wisdom and start building your identity around them. Without realizing it, you begin introducing yourself through your worst experiences. You become the person who was betrayed, the person who failed, the person who lost everything, the person who was abandoned, the person who never got another chance. But those events describe something that happened to you. They do not describe who you are. A storm can pass through a forest without becoming the forest itself. In the same way, painful seasons pass through a life without defining the entire life. Yet overthinking blurs this distinction. It whispers, if it happened once, it will happen again. If someone hurt you before, everyone will eventually hurt you. If one dream failed, every future dream will fail as well. Fear loves patterns, even when the pattern does not truly exist. Notice how quickly your mind creates connections that reality never confirmed. One criticism becomes proof that you are not talented. One difficult relationship becomes proof that love always ends in pain. One financial setback becomes proof that success belongs to someone else. One embarrassing moment becomes proof that people are constantly judging you. The mind takes a single page and convinces you it is the entire book. This is why healing requires something far more powerful than forgetting. It requires rewriting the meaning you have attached to your memories. The event itself cannot be changed, but the story you continue telling yourself about that event can change completely. The same experience that once convinced you that you were weak can later become the reason you discovered your strength. The rejection that once broke your confidence may have quietly redirected your life towards something better. The opportunity you lost may have protected you from a future you could never have imagined. Many of life's greatest blessings first arrived wearing the clothes of disappointment, but overthinking rarely allows you to see that. It freezes your attention on the moment of pain while hiding everything that happened because of it. Think about how many doors in your life closed unexpectedly. At the time, they felt like disasters. Yet years later, you discovered that some of those closed doors protected you from people, places, and paths that would have stolen your peace. Had those doors remained open, you might never have become the person you are today. Life often reveals its wisdom only after enough time has passed. Overthinking refuses to wait. It demands immediate answers for questions that only time can answer. This is why patience is one of the greatest forms of mental strength. Patience allows reality to finish writing the story before your fearful mind decides how it ends. It understands that today's confusion may become tomorrow's clarity, and that today's ending may quietly become the beginning of something greater. Another reason your mind clings to old pain is because unfinished emotions continue searching for attention. Emotions that were ignored, buried, or denied rarely disappear. They wait patiently beneath the surface until something reminds them of what they never had the chance to express. Perhaps you never allowed yourself to grieve. Perhaps you never forgave yourself. Perhaps you kept pretending you were fine because everyone expected you to move on quickly. Pain that is never acknowledged often returns disguised as overthinking. The mind begins replaying the memory, hoping that this time you will finally understand what your heart has been trying to tell you all along. This does not mean you should spend your life analyzing every painful event. Endless analysis can become another form of avoidance. Instead, sit honestly with what happened. Admit how it affected you. Accept what cannot be changed. Learn what can be learned. Then gently close the chapter instead of reading it every night before you sleep. You cannot write a new chapter while refusing to turn the page. Many people secretly believe that letting go means pretending something never happened. It does not. Letting go means accepting that the event no longer deserves control over your future. It means refusing to allow yesterday's pain to make today's decisions. It means understanding that memories are meant to become lessons, not lifelong prisons. Ask yourself a difficult question. How much of your present life is being controlled by experiences that no longer exist? How many opportunities have you refused because of one old disappointment? How many beautiful people have you kept at a distance because one person broke your trust? How many dreams remain untouched because failure once embarrassed you? How many peaceful nights have been sacrificed to conversations that ended years ago? Your future deserves better than becoming a copy of your past. The voice inside your head will continue inviting you back into old stories because familiarity feels comfortable, even when it hurts. The mind often chooses familiar pain over unfamiliar possibility. It would rather revisit an old wound than risk discovering a new future. But growth begins the moment you stop accepting every invitation your mind sends you. Not every memory needs another audience. Not every regret deserves another performance. Not every painful story should be replayed until it becomes your identity. Sometimes the bravest decision is not fighting the memory. It is quietly refusing to press play again. Imagine carrying a heavy suitcase every day for years. Eventually, your shoulders become sore, your back begins to ache, and walking feels exhausting. One day, someone gently asks you a simple question: why are you still carrying it? You pause, because the truth is, no one forced you to carry it this long. The habit simply became so familiar that you forgot you could put it down. Old pain is often like that suitcase. At first you had no choice, but eventually the choice returned. You simply forgot it was there. Today, remember this: your past can teach you without controlling you. Your memories can strengthen you without imprisoning you. Your mistakes can humble you without defining you. Your heartbreak can deepen your wisdom without stealing your ability to love again. The chapter behind you has already been written. You do not honor it by reading it forever. You honor it by allowing it to make the next chapter wiser, stronger, and far more beautiful than the one before. The voice inside your head will always know the language of your past, but from this moment forward you can begin teaching it the language of your future. Chapter 3. Stop believing every thought your mind creates. Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that every single person who knocked on your front door expected to be invited inside. Some would bring good news, others would bring fear, anger, doubt, guilt, regret, and endless criticism. Would you open the door to every stranger simply because they arrived? Would you allow every visitor to rearrange your home, tell you how to live, and remain there for as long as they pleased? Of course not. You would decide who is welcome and who must leave. Yet this is exactly what most people do with their thoughts every single day. A fearful thought appears, and they immediately welcome it. A doubtful thought arrives, and they begin treating it like an expert. A painful memory knocks, and they invite it to stay for hours. Before long, their entire emotional world is controlled by visitors who were never meant to become permanent residents. The greatest mistake you can make is believing that every thought deserves your trust simply because it appeared inside your own mind. Your mind is an incredible instrument, but it is not perfect. It produces ideas, memories, predictions, questions, possibilities, assumptions, and fears every waking hour. Some of those thoughts are useful. Some are completely harmless. Others are deeply misleading. The problem is not that the mind creates thoughts. The problem begins when you stop examining them and start obeying them without question. Think about how often your mind speaks in dramatic language. It rarely says, "This might be difficult." Instead, it declares, "This is going to be a disaster." It does not whisper, "Perhaps they were busy." It immediately concludes, "They are ignoring you because they no longer care." It does not suggest, "You made one mistake." It insists, "You always ruin everything." Notice those words: always, never, everyone, nobody, everything, nothing. Fear loves absolute language because absolute language leaves no room for hope, growth, or possibility. It paints life using only black and white, convincing you there are no shades in between. Reality, however, is almost never absolute. Most situations are more complex than the stories your anxious mind creates. One unanswered message does not mean you have been abandoned. One mistake does not erase years of progress. One difficult season does not define an entire life. One person's opinion does not determine your value. Yet overthinking ignores these truths because certainty feels more comfortable than uncertainty, even when that certainty is painfully negative. The mind would rather invent a complete story than admit it does not yet know the answer. This is why assumptions become so dangerous. The human mind dislikes unfinished stories. Whenever information is missing, it automatically begins filling the empty spaces. Unfortunately, it often fills those spaces with fear instead of facts. Someone looks serious, and your mind assumes they are disappointed in you. A friend becomes quieter than usual, and you begin wondering whether you have done something wrong. Your manager asks to speak with you tomorrow, and before the conversation even happens, your imagination has already cost you your job. Hours of emotional suffering are created by events that never actually occur. Have you ever noticed how exhausting this becomes? You spend an entire day worrying about tomorrow, only to discover tomorrow was nothing like you imagined. Then another fear appears, followed by another, and another after that. The mind moves from one imagined problem to the next, rarely allowing itself to enjoy the peace available in the present moment. It is like carrying an umbrella every day because it rained once years ago. Eventually, you forget why you are carrying it. It simply becomes part of your life. In the same way, many people carry emotional protection long after the danger has disappeared. They expect rejection before introducing themselves. They expect betrayal before trusting anyone. They expect failure before beginning something meaningful. The tragedy is that these expectations quietly influence behavior. A person who expects rejection may avoid genuine connections. Someone who expects failure may never fully commit to their goals. A person who believes they are unworthy may unintentionally push away people who truly care about them. The thought becomes the behavior. The behavior creates the result. Then the mind points to that result as proof that the original thought was correct. This is one of the most powerful cycles of overthinking. It creates the very evidence it was searching for. Breaking this cycle requires courage because it asks you to stop treating your thoughts as unquestionable facts. Instead of immediately believing the first story your mind creates, learn to become curious about it. Ask yourself, is this something I know or something I fear? Ask, what evidence supports this thought? Then ask an even more important question, what evidence does my mind keep ignoring? If your mind says, nobody appreciates me, remember the people who have stood beside you during difficult times. If it says, I never do anything right, think about the countless responsibilities you have already handled, the problems you have solved, and the moments when your strength carried you through challenges you once believed were impossible. Your mind often collects evidence like a lawyer trying to win a case. It searches only for information supporting its current belief, while ignoring everything that contradicts it. If the belief is negative, your attention automatically becomes biased toward negative experiences. This is why two people can live the same day and remember it completely differently. One notices every disappointment, the other notices every opportunity. Their lives begin moving in different directions because their attention is serving different masters. Attention is powerful because whatever you repeatedly focus on begins growing inside your mind. Feed fear every day and fear becomes stronger. Feed gratitude every day and gratitude begins changing the way you see the world. Feed confidence through action, and confidence quietly replaces hesitation. The mind expands whatever receives consistent attention. Imagine planting two gardens. In one garden, you water weeds every morning. You remove nothing, ignore the flowers, and give every drop of water to what destroys the beauty of the garden. In the second garden, you patiently remove weeds while watering healthy plants every day. Months later, the difference is obvious. Your thoughts work exactly the same way. Every fearful thought you repeatedly entertain becomes another weed receiving water. Every encouraging thought supported by action becomes another healthy tree growing stronger roots. The goal is not to eliminate every negative thought. Every human being experiences fear, doubt, sadness, and uncertainty. The goal is deciding which thoughts deserve nourishment and which ones should simply be allowed to pass without attention. One of the greatest forms of emotional maturity is realizing that silence is often wiser than internal debate. Many overthinkers spend hours arguing with fearful thoughts, trying to prove them wrong. Ironically, this keeps attention locked onto the very thing they want to escape. The mind mistakes attention for importance. The more attention you give a thought, the more significant it appears. Instead of fighting every thought, practice observing it. Imagine standing beside a busy road. Hundreds of cars pass by every hour. You notice them, but you do not chase every vehicle. You do not jump into traffic because one car caught your attention. You simply watch them continue down the road. Thoughts can be treated the same way. Some arrive carrying hope, some carry doubt. Some carry painful memories. Some carry impossible predictions. Your responsibility is not to climb into every passing thought. Your responsibility is to decide which direction deserves your life. There will be moments when the voice inside your head sounds incredibly convincing. It may remind you of your past. It may predict your future with frightening confidence. It may even use facts from previous experiences to support its fearful conclusions. But remember this, a fact can be true while the conclusion built upon it is completely false. Yes, you failed before. That does not mean you will fail again. Yes, someone hurt you. That does not mean everyone will. Yes, life became difficult. That does not mean it will remain difficult forever. Your mind often mistakes history for destiny, but history explains where you have been. It does not decide where you are going. As you continue this journey, Begin paying close attention to the conversations happening inside your own mind. Listen carefully to the language your inner voice uses. Notice how quickly it predicts disaster, how easily it criticizes your efforts, and how often it assumes the worst before reality has spoken. Then remember something incredibly important. You are not standing in a courtroom where every thought must be defended. You are standing at the doorway of your own mind, and you have the authority to decide which thoughts enter, which thoughts leave, and which thoughts deserve nothing more than a quiet smile before they disappear. The voice inside your head may continue speaking. It has practiced for many years, but from today forward, it no longer has permission to become the author of your future. Your thoughts may introduce themselves. Only you can decide which ones are allowed to write the next chapter of your life. Chapter 4. The more you fight your thoughts, the stronger they become. There comes a moment in almost every overthinker's life when they become exhausted, not only by their thoughts, but by the constant battle against those thoughts. They wake up determined to think positively, remain calm, and avoid returning to the same painful mental patterns. Yet the harder they try to force certain thoughts away, the more those thoughts seem to return. Fear becomes louder, memories become sharper, and the mind begins producing even more questions than before. Eventually, they start wondering whether something is wrong with them because they cannot control what appears inside their own head. But the problem is not always the thought itself. Sometimes, the greater problem is the war you begin fighting against it. Imagine standing inside a dark room while holding a large beach ball beneath the surface of a swimming pool. You push it down with all your strength because you do not want anyone to see it. For a few seconds it stays hidden, but the pressure continues building. Your arms become tired. Your body becomes tense. The moment your grip weakens, the ball shoots upward with even greater force. This is what happens when you try to force thoughts out of your mind. The more desperately you push them down, the more energy they receive. The more you tell yourself not to think about something, the more your attention becomes attached to it. You begin checking every few seconds to see whether the thought is gone, but that checking itself keeps the thought alive. Without realizing it, you become the person feeding the very mental pattern you are trying to destroy. Try telling yourself not to imagine a bright red door. Immediately, your mind creates one. Try ordering yourself not to remember a painful conversation. The conversation appears. Try forcing yourself not to feel anxious. Now your attention becomes fixed on every sign of anxiety. This is why control through force often fails. The mind cannot remove something while constantly monitoring whether it is still there. Every attempt to verify the thought's disappearance becomes another moment of attention, and attention is the fuel that keeps many thoughts alive. You may have experienced this at night. You lie down and tell yourself, "I must fall asleep now. I cannot think. I have to stop thinking immediately." The more urgently you demand sleep, the further away it seems. You begin noticing the time, calculating how many hours remain, worrying about how tired you will feel tomorrow, and becoming angry at your own mind for refusing to cooperate. The original problem was simply wakefulness, but the struggle transforms it into panic. The same thing happens with overthinking during the day. A thought appears, perhaps about your health, your future, your relationship, or an old mistake. Instead of noticing it and continuing with your day, you become afraid of the thought itself. You ask why it appeared, what it means, whether it will return, and whether its presence reveals something terrible about you. The mind begins overthinking the fact that it is overthinking. This creates a second layer of suffering. The first layer is the original thought. The second layer is your judgment of having that thought. You may think, "Why am I still like this? I should be stronger. I should have moved on. I should be able to control my mind." Now you are not only experiencing fear, regret, or doubt, you are also carrying shame because those emotions exist. This is how one difficult thought becomes an entire emotional storm. The first thought may have lasted only a few seconds, but your resistance gives it a much longer life. You begin analyzing it, arguing with it, fearing it, and trying to remove it. Each reaction tells the brain that the thought is important and possibly dangerous. The brain responds by bringing it back more often so you can continue examining the threat. Your mind is trying to protect you, but it does not always understand what protection truly looks like. If you react to a thought with panic, your brain assumes the thought represents danger. It stores that reaction and becomes more alert the next time a similar idea appears. Over time, the mind creates a cycle in which the thought causes fear, the fear causes attention, and the attention causes the thought to return. To break this cycle, you must learn a new response. Not force, not panic, not endless debate. Observation. Observation is powerful because it allows a thought to exist without giving it authority. You can notice what is happening inside your mind without treating it as a command, prediction, or emergency. A thought may say, "You are going to fail." Observation responds, "My mind is predicting failure." A thought may say, "They are going to leave you." Observation responds, "I am experiencing fear of abandonment." A thought may say, "You ruined everything." Observation responds, "My mind is returning to regret." Notice the difference. The first statement pulls you inside the thought. The second creates distance between you and the thought. That distance may appear small, but it changes everything. When you say, "I am a failure," the thought becomes part of your identity. When you say, "I am having the thought that I might fail," you remember that you are the person observing the thought rather than the thought itself. This is not a trick of language. It is a shift in authority. The thought is no longer speaking as the unquestioned ruler of your mind. It has become one mental event among thousands of others. It may be loud, emotional, and familiar, but it is still only a thought. Consider how many thoughts enter your mind each day without becoming meaningful. You may suddenly remember a song, a childhood place, an unfinished task, or the face of someone you have not seen in years. These thoughts appear and disappear because you do not treat them as emergencies. You do not investigate why the song appeared or what the memory means. You simply allow them to move through your awareness. Negative thoughts often remain longer because you respond differently to them. You grab them, you question them, you examine them from every angle, you search for proof, you imagine consequences. You replay them to make sure you understood them correctly. Then you wonder why they refuse to leave. A thought held tightly cannot pass. Imagine standing at a train station. Trains arrive continuously, each one traveling toward a different destination. One train is labeled fear, another is labeled regret, another is labeled comparison, another is labeled imagined disaster. You are not required to board every train simply because it arrives at your platform. You may notice the train, you may hear its noise, you may even feel the wind as it passes, but you can remain where you are. The problem is that many people board the train before realizing where it is going. A small thought appears, such as, "What if they do not reply?" Within minutes, the train has carried them through rejection, loneliness, imagined arguments, abandonment, and the belief that nobody will ever care about them again. The journey began with one unanswered message. It ended in an imaginary future filled with pain. Learning to observe your thoughts means noticing the moment the train arrives. You may not prevent every train from appearing, but you can decide whether it deserves your journey. This requires patience because the mind has been trained through repetition. If you have spent years fighting thoughts, judging yourself, and following every fearful possibility, the old reaction will feel automatic. You may notice that you have already traveled deep into a thought loop before becoming aware of it. Do not criticize yourself when this happens. Awareness arriving late is still awareness. Perhaps in the past you remained trapped for an entire day. Now you notice after 2 hours. Later you may notice after 20 minutes. Eventually you may catch the thought within seconds. Progress is not always the complete disappearance of the pattern. Often, it is the growing speed of your return. The return is where your strength develops. Each time you notice that your mind has wandered into fear and gently return to the present, you are building a new mental habit. You are teaching your brain that thoughts can exist without receiving endless attention. You are showing yourself that you can experience discomfort without immediately trying to escape, solve, or control it. This is important because many thought loops survive through avoidance. You may avoid silence because it allows thoughts to appear. You may keep music, videos, conversations, and social media playing constantly because being alone with your mind feels uncomfortable. You may overwork, oversleep, overeat, or remain endlessly busy to avoid hearing the voice inside your head. Distraction can provide temporary relief, but it does not create freedom. If you must remain constantly distracted to feel peaceful, the thoughts still control you. Real peace begins when you can sit in the presence of a difficult thought without becoming its servant. You notice the discomfort, you feel it in your body, you allow it to rise, remain, and eventually fall. You discover that an emotion is not an endless wave. It has a beginning, a peak, and an ending when it is not continuously fed by more fearful thoughts. Most emotions move naturally when they are allowed. It is the story surrounding the emotion that often keeps it alive. You may feel nervous before an important conversation. Nervousness itself is manageable, but then the mind adds a story. I will say the wrong thing, they will judge me, I will embarrass myself, this conversation will ruin everything. The original nervousness becomes much larger because thought continues adding fuel. Learn to separate the physical feeling from the mental story. Perhaps your chest feels tight, your stomach feels unsettled, your breathing has changed. These are sensations. Then the mind declares, something terrible is about to happen. That is interpretation. Sensations are real. Interpretations are not always true. When you stop adding catastrophic meaning to every feeling, the body often begins calming more quickly. You can say, my body is experiencing anxiety, but I am not in immediate danger. You allow the physical reaction to exist while refusing to build an entire future around it. This is not denial, it is accuracy. The voice inside your head often speaks as if discomfort and danger are the same thing. They are not. A difficult conversation may be uncomfortable without being dangerous. Beginning a new project may feel uncertain without being a threat. Setting a boundary may create guilt without meaning you have done something wrong. Growth frequently feels uncomfortable because it asks you to move beyond familiar patterns. If you interpret every discomfort as a warning to stop, you will remain trapped inside the life you are trying to outgrow. Your mind may say, this feels frightening, so it must be wrong. But sometimes it feels frightening because it is new. Sometimes the fear is not telling you to run. It is showing you where courage is needed. Learning to accept thoughts does not mean agreeing with them. This distinction is essential. Acceptance means acknowledging that a thought has appeared without wasting energy pretending it has not. Agreement means treating the thought as truth. You can accept the presence of a thought while completely rejecting its conclusion. You can say, I notice my mind is telling me I am not capable, but I do not agree with that story. You can say, I notice fear is predicting rejection, but I will wait for reality to speak. You can say, I notice regret is returning, but the past is not asking me to make that decision again. This approach is far more powerful than shouting positive statements you do not believe. You are not trying to overpower fear with false confidence. You are simply refusing to give fear unquestioned authority. There will be thoughts that feel especially painful because they touch old wounds. A small event in the present can awaken a much larger emotional reaction from the past. Someone may delay replying to your message, and suddenly you feel the same abandonment you experienced years ago. A manager may offer criticism, and you hear the voice of someone who once made you feel worthless. A loved one may need space, and your mind immediately returns to every person who left. The present event may be small. The old wound makes it feel enormous. When this happens, do not attack yourself for overreacting. Instead, become curious. Ask, is this reaction only about what is happening now, or is something older being activated? This question can prevent you from making permanent decisions during temporary emotional storms. It reminds you that the intensity of a feeling does not always prove the size of the current problem. Sometimes you are reacting to many years of pain at once. You deserve patience in those moments. You do not need to shame yourself into healing. A cruel inner voice cannot create a peaceful mind. Many people believe they must be hard on themselves to become stronger. They insult themselves after mistakes, criticize every emotional reaction, and treat their own mind as an enemy that must be defeated. But constant self-attack keeps the nervous system in a state of defense. The mind cannot feel safe when the person living inside it speaks with cruelty. Real discipline is not cruelty. Real discipline is calm direction. It is the ability to say, "This thought is not helping me, so I will return to what matters." It is the ability to say, "I am feeling overwhelmed, so I will slow down rather than destroy myself." It is the ability to say, "I made a mistake, and I will correct it without turning it into my identity." A strong inner voice does not scream, it guides. It does not humiliate you, it tells you the truth while reminding you that change is still possible. You will never create peace by becoming another person who attacks you from within. The voice inside your head may already carry the language of every critic you have met. It does not need your help becoming more cruel. What it needs is a wiser authority, one that can recognize error without removing dignity, acknowledge pain without creating helplessness, and accept fear without surrendering direction. This wiser authority begins developing when you stop treating the mind as a battlefield. Your mind is not your enemy. It is a powerful system that has learned patterns, some helpful and some harmful. It has learned to worry because worry once felt protective. It has learned to criticize because criticism may have helped you avoid rejection. It has learned to replay the past because it believes remembering pain will prevent its return. These patterns may be hurting you now, but they were often created in an attempt to keep you safe. Understanding this allows you to change without hatred. Instead of saying, "Why is my mind destroying me?" you can ask, "What is my mind trying to protect me from?" Perhaps it is trying to protect you from embarrassment, perhaps rejection, perhaps uncertainty, perhaps disappointment, perhaps losing control. Once you understand the fear beneath the thought, you can respond more wisely. You can remind yourself that protection does not require permanent avoidance. You can tell your mind, "I understand why you are afraid, but I am capable of handling what comes next." This is the beginning of self-trust. A person who trusts themselves does not need to eliminate every possible difficulty before taking action. They know that they can adjust, learn, recover, and continue. They do not demand that the future become predictable before allowing themselves to live. Overthinking often grows where self-trust is weak. When you do not trust your ability to handle pain, you try to predict and prevent every painful possibility. When you do not trust yourself to recover from failure, you avoid every uncertain opportunity. When you do not trust your own judgment, you analyze every decision until the moment has passed. The solution is not always more thinking. Sometimes it is proving to yourself that you can survive uncertainty. You build this proof through action. You make a small decision without asking 10 people for reassurance. You begin a task before feeling completely prepared. You allow a message to remain unanswered for a while without creating a disaster around it. You attend the event even though nervousness is present. You set the boundary even though guilt follows. Every action teaches your mind something. When you act despite fear, the mind learns that fear does not control movement. When you tolerate uncertainty, the mind learns that uncertainty is survivable. When you allow a thought to pass without investigation, the mind learns that not every thought is an emergency. This is how the voice begins losing power, not because you defeated it in one dramatic battle, but because you stopped giving it victory in 1,000 small moments. There may still be days when the noise returns loudly. You may wake up feeling calm and become overwhelmed by evening. You may believe you have finally moved forward, only to be surprised by an old thought. Do not interpret this as proof that nothing has changed. Healing is rarely a straight line. The mind revisits old patterns, especially during stress, exhaustion, loneliness, and uncertainty. An old thought returning does not mean you have returned to the beginning. It simply means your brain has reached for a familiar pathway. You now have another option. You can notice the old path without walking it to the end. You can say, "I know where this thought leads, and I am choosing not to follow it today." This sentence represents enormous growth. In the past, the thought may have controlled your emotions, decisions, sleep, and behavior. Now it may still knock, but it no longer owns the house. This is what mental freedom truly looks like. It is not permanent silence. It is choice. The choice to pause before believing. The choice to observe before reacting. The choice to allow discomfort without creating disaster. The choice to let a thought pass instead of turning it into a prophecy. The voice inside your head may always produce noise because that is what minds do. They remember, predict, compare, and question. Your task is not to destroy the machine. Your task is to become skilled at operating it. A powerful car without a driver can become dangerous. The same car under wise control can carry you toward places you never imagined reaching. Your mind is similar. Left unquestioned, it can carry you into fear, regret, and endless imagined futures. Guided with awareness, it can help you create, solve, learn, connect, and rebuild. The mind was never meant to become the master of your life. It was meant to become your instrument. From this moment forward, when a painful thought appears, do not rush to fight it. Do not welcome it as truth. Do not build your identity around it. Notice it, name it, breathe, and return to what is real. Let the thought speak without giving it the final word. Let fear rise without allowing it to choose your direction. Let uncertainty exist without demanding an immediate answer. The voice may continue trying to pull you into battle, but you are learning something it never expected. You do not have to win every argument inside your head. You only have to stop attending every argument. That is how the noise begins losing power. That is how your attention returns. That is how peace slowly enters the spaces where struggle once lived. And that is how you begin taking back control, not by defeating your mind, but by becoming the calmest and wisest presence within it. Chapter 5. Your mind is addicted to certainty, but life was never designed to give it. There is a hidden reason your mind keeps returning to the same questions, even after you have already thought about them for hours, days, or sometimes years. It is not always because the problem is complicated. It is often because your mind is searching for something life cannot fully provide. Certainty. You want to know that the decision you are making is correct. You want proof that the person you trust will never betray you. You want reassurance that your hard work will lead to success. You want a guarantee that the future will not suddenly take something important away from you. You want to know that if you speak honestly, you will not be rejected. If you begin again, you will not fail. And if you open your heart, it will not be broken. The mind believes that if it can collect enough information, study every possible outcome, and think deeply enough, uncertainty will finally disappear. But uncertainty does not disappear. It only changes its clothes. You may solve one question, and another immediately takes its place. You receive reassurance, but hours later the doubt returns. Someone tells you everything is fine, yet your mind begins wondering whether they truly meant it. You make a careful decision, but then you start thinking about the road you did not choose. You prepare for every obvious problem, and your mind begins creating problems you never considered. Overthinking does not end when it finds an answer. It ends when it learns that it can live without having every answer. This is one of the hardest lessons for a restless mind to accept, because uncertainty feels like danger. When the future is unclear, the mind believes it must remain alert. It begins scanning for threats, reviewing possibilities, and creating emergency plans for situations that may never happen. It calls this preparation, but much of the time it is fear searching for a guarantee. There is a difference between planning wisely and trying to control life through thought. Planning creates a direction. Overthinking demands a promise. Planning asks, "What can I do?" Overthinking asks, "How can I make sure nothing goes wrong?" Planning eventually becomes action. Overthinking continues until exhaustion takes the place of clarity. Imagine standing at the edge of a long road covered in fog. You can see only a short distance ahead. Your mind demands that the entire road become visible before you take the first step. It wants to know every turn, every obstacle, every person you will meet, and every place where you might become lost. But the fog does not move because you continue standing still. The road reveals itself only when you begin walking. This is how most meaningful journeys work. You did not receive a complete map for your life at birth. You were given the next choice, the next step, the next lesson, and the ability to respond when the path changed. Yet overthinking convinces you that movement without complete visibility is irresponsible. The truth is the opposite. Waiting for complete certainty is often the most expensive form of delay. Opportunities disappear while you are calculating every possible risk. Relationships become distant while you search for the perfect words. Dreams remain untouched while you wait to feel completely ready. Years pass while you continue asking whether now is the right time. The mind promises that one day you will finally feel certain. That day rarely arrives. You do not begin because fear disappears. Fear begins shrinking because you act while it is still present. Think about the most important decisions you have ever made. Did you know exactly how they would end? Did you have complete evidence that everything would work? Did you possess a guarantee that you would never regret them? Probably not. You moved because something inside you understood that staying still had become more painful than uncertainty. Perhaps you started a new career without knowing whether you would succeed. Perhaps you left a relationship without knowing whether loneliness would follow. Perhaps you trusted someone without knowing whether they would stay. Perhaps you moved to a new place, began a project, or rebuilt your life after a painful ending. You did not need certainty. You needed courage. Courage is not confidence about the outcome. It is trust in your ability to respond to the outcome. This distinction can completely transform your relationship with overthinking. Instead of asking, "How can I be certain that nothing bad will happen?" you begin asking, "Can I trust myself to handle what happens?" The first question has no final answer. The second can be strengthened every day. Self-trust is the medicine for the mind's addiction to certainty. When you trust yourself, you no longer need to predict every possible difficulty because you believe in your ability to adapt. You understand that if the plan fails, you can revise it. If someone leaves, you can grieve and continue. If you make a mistake, you can learn. If life changes unexpectedly, you can change with it. Without self-trust, every unknown feels like a threat. With self-trust, the unknown becomes a space where possibility can exist. Many people believe they lack confidence because they do not feel fearless. But confidence is not the absence of doubt. It is the decision that doubt will not receive complete control. You may still question yourself, yet take the step. You may still feel nervous, yet speak. You may still wonder whether the future will work, yet continue building it. The most powerful people are not those who always know what to do. They are those who know they can respond when they do not know. The voice inside your head may tell you that uncertainty is evidence that you should stop. It may say, if this were right, you would feel completely peaceful. If this were meant for you, you would not be afraid. If you were capable, you would not have doubts. This sounds convincing, but it is not true. You can be afraid and still be moving in the right direction. You can feel uncertain and still make a wise choice. You can doubt yourself and still possess the ability to succeed. Sometimes fear appears not because the path is wrong, but because the path is important. Small decisions rarely awaken your deepest insecurities. It is the meaningful choices that expose what you fear losing, what you fear becoming, and what you fear others may think. The louder the dream, the louder the voice may become. The voice knows that if you move forward, the old identity may no longer survive. If you begin speaking with confidence, you can no longer remain the person who always hides. If you build discipline, you can no longer blame every unfinished dream on circumstances. If you set boundaries, some people may lose the version of you they could easily control. If you succeed, you may be forced to leave behind the belief that you were never capable. Growth is not only the creation of a new life, it is the ending of an old identity. The mind often resists this ending because even a painful identity can feel safe when it is familiar. You know how to survive as the person who doubts, delays, apologizes, and waits. Becoming stronger introduces responsibilities that fear would rather avoid. This is why the voice may become loudest just before change. It is not always warning you. Sometimes it is defending what is familiar. Notice how often you search for reassurance before acting. You ask friends what they would do. You watch countless videos. You read more advice. You compare your situation to the lives of strangers. You hope someone will give you the sentence that finally removes all doubt. Reassurance can be helpful, but repeated reassurance can become another addiction. It gives temporary relief without building inner trust. Each time uncertainty returns, you need another person to calm it. Eventually, you stop asking for perspective and begin asking for permission. No one else can live your consequences. They can advise you, encourage you, warn you, or share what worked for them, but they cannot carry your exact fears, values, circumstances, and dreams. A decision may appear safe to another person while quietly destroying something important inside you. Another decision may appear risky to them while being necessary for your growth. There comes a point when more opinions create less clarity. You must become quiet enough to hear your own judgment beneath everyone else's voice. This does not mean rejecting wisdom or making careless choices. It means recognizing when research has become avoidance and when advice has become an excuse to delay responsibility. There will be moments when you possess enough information and the only thing missing is courage. At that point, another hour of thinking will not save you. Only movement will. Make the best decision you can with the information available. Accept that every choice closes one road while opening another. Stop demanding that one decision reveal the entire future. You are not choosing every day that will follow. You are choosing the next honest direction. You can adjust later. You can learn more. You can change your mind when new truth appears. A decision is not always a prison. Sometimes it is simply the next experiment in becoming who you are meant to be. Overthinkers often treat choices as permanent judgments about their intelligence. They fear that making a wrong decision will prove they are foolish. This makes every choice feel heavier than it needs to be. Even simple matters become exhausting because the mind believes there is one perfect answer hidden somewhere and failure to find it will create disaster. But life is rarely divided into one perfect choice and many terrible ones. Often, there are several possible paths, each carrying different lessons, difficulties, and opportunities. Your task is not to discover a flawless road. It is to choose a road you can walk with intention. Even a good decision can lead to pain. Even a poor decision can produce wisdom. You cannot measure the quality of a choice only by whether the journey remained comfortable. Sometimes the wisest path is difficult because it requires growth. Sometimes the easiest path becomes costly because it asks you to betray yourself. The voice inside your head tends to judge decisions using immediate emotion. If a choice creates anxiety, it assumes the choice is wrong. If a boundary creates guilt, it tells you to remove it. If leaving something painful creates loneliness, it tells you to return. But temporary discomfort is not always evidence of a bad decision. It may be the price of ending a harmful pattern. When you stop pleasing everyone, guilt may appear because you are unfamiliar with choosing yourself. When you stop chasing someone, loneliness may appear because your life has not yet filled the space they occupied. When you stop overworking, restlessness may appear because your worth has been connected to productivity. When you begin speaking honestly, fear may appear because silence once protected you. Do not confuse the discomfort of change with the danger of change. Your mind will often miss what hurt you simply because it understood how to survive there. Familiar pain can feel strangely safer than unfamiliar freedom. This is why people return to relationships, habits, and environments they worked so hard to escape. The unknown asks them to build a new identity, while the old pain requires no imagination. The mind says, "At least I know what happens here." But knowing how something hurts does not make it healthy. Certainty is not always peace. Sometimes it is simply predictable suffering. You may know with certainty that a person will continue disrespecting you. You may know that a job will continue draining you. You may know that a habit will continue weakening your future. These things are predictable, but prediction does not make them worthy of your life. The unknown can contain danger, but it can also contain healing, opportunity, connection, and a version of yourself you have never met. If you insist on certainty, you may protect yourself from disappointment, but you will also protect yourself from possibility. Every meaningful experience contains risk. Love risks heartbreak. Ambition risks failure. Honesty risks rejection. Trust risks betrayal. Change risks discomfort. But refusing every risk creates another risk that overthinking rarely mentions: the risk of never fully living. Imagine reaching the end of your life and realizing that many of your worst fears never happened, yet the fear of them controlled every decision. Imagine discovering that the voice inside your head kept you safe from embarrassment, but also hidden from opportunity. It protected you from rejection by preventing you from connecting, protected you from failure by preventing you from trying, and protected you from change by keeping you inside a life that no longer felt alive. Would that truly be safety? A life built only around avoiding pain becomes smaller every year. At first you avoid one situation, then another. You stop speaking in groups because you fear judgment. You stop applying for opportunities because you fear rejection. You stop trusting because you fear betrayal. You stop beginning because you fear not finishing. Slowly, the boundaries of your life move inward until your world becomes limited to what fear considers safe. But fear's definition of safety is survival without expansion. Your heart was made for more than survival. It was made to experience, create, connect, learn, fall, recover, and become. To reclaim that life, you must begin practicing uncertainty in small doses. You do not need to transform everything overnight. You teach your mind gradually that not knowing is uncomfortable but survivable. Make one small decision without endless analysis. Wear what you like without asking whether everyone will approve. Send the message without rewriting it 20 times. Begin the project before understanding every step. Allow someone's delayed response to remain unexplained for a few hours. Take a different route. Try something you may not perform perfectly. Let a minor question remain unanswered. These small acts may appear insignificant, but they weaken the belief that you need complete certainty before moving. Each one teaches your nervous system that uncertainty can exist without catastrophe. At first, the voice may protest. It may tell you to check again. It may ask for more reassurance. It may create another possible problem. Do not treat this protest as a command. Recognize it as an old pattern losing its authority. Say, "I have enough information for now." Say, "I am allowed to decide without knowing everything." Say, "Uncertainty is present, but I am still safe in this moment." Then return to action. This return is essential because overthinking thrives in empty mental space without purposeful direction. When you remain seated inside uncertainty, the mind begins building stories. When you move toward a meaningful task, you remind yourself that life continues even when questions remain. Action does not solve every uncertainty, but it makes uncertainty smaller by giving your attention somewhere useful to go. Suppose you are worried about your future. You can spend 3 hours imagining every possible failure, or you can spend 1 hour improving a skill that strengthens your future. One creates the feeling of activity without progress. The other builds evidence that you are capable of influencing what comes next. Suppose you fear losing a relationship. You can analyze every message and silence, or you can communicate honestly, observe behavior, and protect your self-respect. One traps you inside interpretation, the other brings you closer to truth. Suppose you fear making a mistake. You can delay until the opportunity disappears, or you can take a measured step, review the result, and adjust. One protects your ego from error. The other teaches you how to become better. The voice inside your head will often choose thinking because thinking feels safer than testing reality. In imagination, you can rehearse everything without being seen. In action, your ability becomes measurable. You may discover you are less prepared than you hoped, but you may also discover you are far more capable than fear claimed. Overthinking would rather keep both possibilities unknown. It tells you uncertainty is the problem, while secretly using uncertainty to protect its own story. As long as you never try, the belief that you might fail cannot be challenged, but neither can the possibility that you might succeed be proven. Action exposes fear to reality. Reality is often less terrifying than imagination. A conversation you feared for weeks may last 10 minutes. A task you delayed for months may be completed in an afternoon. A rejection you believed would destroy you may hurt, but you continue breathing, working, and waking up. A new beginning may feel awkward, but each day becomes easier. You discover that discomfort has limits. You discover that embarrassment fades. You discover that people think about you far less than your mind imagined. You discover that failure is an event, not a life sentence. Most importantly, you discover that you can survive feelings you once believed must be avoided at all costs. This is how self-trust grows, not by promising yourself that nothing difficult will happen, but by remembering every difficult thing you already survived. Look back honestly at your life. There were moments when you believed you could not continue, yet you did. There were nights that felt endless, yet morning arrived. There were losses you thought would permanently break you, yet you slowly rebuilt. There were situations for which you had no plan, yet you found a response. Your life is already filled with evidence that you can face uncertainty. The voice inside your head rarely presents this evidence because it weakens the argument for fear. It remembers moments of helplessness but ignores the strength that followed. It shows you the fall while hiding the fact that you stood again. You must become the keeper of your own evidence. Remember the moments when you acted despite fear. Remember the decisions you made without complete certainty. Remember the times life changed unexpectedly and you adjusted. Remember every version of yourself who carried you through something you once thought impossible. Those versions are still within you. You are not entering the future empty-handed. You carry experience, judgment, endurance, lessons, and the ability to ask for help when necessary. You carry the knowledge that pain changes, emotions pass, and life can rebuild after endings. Certainty is not your protection. Your capacity to respond is. There will always be elements of life you cannot control. You cannot control another person's loyalty, the timing of every opportunity, the opinions of strangers, the movement of the economy, the arrival of change, or the exact shape of tomorrow. Trying to control the uncontrollable does not create safety. It creates exhaustion. You wake each day carrying responsibilities that never belong to you. You try to predict other people's emotions, prevent every misunderstanding, and prepare for every disaster. You become mentally responsible for the entire universe while neglecting the small part that is actually yours. Your choices, your effort, your boundaries, your attention, your response. Your next step, this is where your power lives. The mind feels calmer when responsibility returns to its proper place. You stop trying to control whether others approve and begin controlling whether your behavior reflects your values. You stop trying to guarantee success and begin controlling the quality of your work. You stop trying to predict every future problem and begin strengthening the person who will meet the future. This does not remove uncertainty. It makes uncertainty less powerful. The strongest mental question is not, "What if this goes wrong?" It is, "What will I do if it does?" The first question creates helplessness. The second creates preparation without panic. If the plan fails, you will evaluate it. If the person leaves, you will grieve and protect your dignity. If you are criticized, you will decide what is useful and release what is not. If you feel afraid, you will breathe and continue carefully. If the future changes, you will change your approach. There is almost always a next response. Overthinking makes every imagined problem feel final. It speaks as though one failure will erase all future opportunities, one rejection will remove all love, and one mistake will permanently define you. But life is more flexible than fear suggests. There are second attempts. There are new people. There are lessons. There are roads you cannot see from where you are standing. There are versions of your future that cannot exist until the current plan changes. A closed door is not proof that there are no doors. A wrong turn is not proof that the journey is over. Uncertainty may remove the plan you expected, but it may reveal a direction your fear never considered. To live fully, you must stop demanding that life explain itself before you participate in it. Some answers arrive only after the experience. Some lessons can be understood only in hindsight. Some people make sense only after they leave. Some delays reveal their purpose only when the right timing finally appears. You do not need to understand the entire story while you are still inside the chapter. You need enough patience to keep reading. The voice inside your head may continue asking, "But what if?" Let it ask. You do not need to answer every version. Sometimes the wisest response is, "I do not know yet." There is strength in that sentence. It is honest. It is calm. It leaves room for reality to speak. "I do not know yet" does not mean you are powerless. It means you refuse to replace missing information with fear. It means you are willing to wait for facts instead of building pain from assumptions. Perhaps they will stay. Perhaps they will leave. Perhaps the opportunity will work. Perhaps another will appear. Perhaps the decision will lead exactly where you hope. Perhaps it will teach you something different. You do not know yet, and you are still allowed to breathe. You are still allowed to sleep. You are still allowed to enjoy today before tomorrow reveals itself. This may be the greatest cost of the search for certainty. It convinces you that peace must be postponed until every question is answered. But there will always be another question. If peace depends on a completely predictable future, peace will remain forever out of reach. Peace must become possible inside uncertainty. You practice it when you say, "This moment is enough, even though I do not know what comes next." You practice it when you notice fear reaching into tomorrow and gently bring your attention back to today. You practice it when you appreciate what is present without demanding a guarantee that it will remain forever. Everything changes. People change. Circumstances change. You change. The temporary nature of life is not only a reason for fear, it is also a reason to be present. Because moments do not last forever, they deserve to be experienced while they are here. Yet overthinking causes you to miss them. While sitting with someone you love, you worry about losing them. While receiving an opportunity, you worry about failing. While resting, you worry about future work. While succeeding, you worry about whether you can maintain success. The voice steals the moment by asking how long it will last. But a moment does not need to last forever to matter. A relationship can be meaningful even if it changes. An opportunity can be valuable even if it does not become permanent. A peaceful season can nourish you even if difficulty later returns. Life is not worthless because it moves. It is precious because it moves. Your mind may never become completely comfortable with uncertainty, but it can become familiar with it. You can train yourself to stand at the edge of the unknown without immediately imagining disaster. You can feel the discomfort, acknowledge the missing answers, and still choose a direction. This is not carelessness. It is freedom. It is the freedom to begin before certainty arrives. The freedom to love without controlling. The freedom to speak without rehearsing every possible reaction. The freedom to make mistakes without turning them into identity. The freedom to allow tomorrow to remain tomorrow. The voice inside your head has spent years telling you that peace will come when everything is finally known, solved, and controlled. But look at how much peace that promise has already cost you. You have thought enough, prepared enough, replayed enough, asked enough imaginary questions. The future will not become safer because you suffer before it arrives. The past will not become different because you continue investigating it. Other people will not become controllable because you study every word they say. At some point, you must exchange the demand for certainty for the practice of trust. Trust that you can take the next step without seeing the entire road. Trust that you can survive disappointment without losing yourself. Trust that one ending cannot remove every beginning. Trust that fear can travel beside you without choosing the destination. The mind may ask for guarantees. Life will offer invitations. You must decide which one you will follow. A guarantee says, move only when nothing can go wrong. An invitation says, move because something meaningful may become possible. One keeps you protected but motionless. The other asks for courage and gives you a life. You were never meant to know every answer before living. You were meant to learn, respond, adjust, and continue. The fog may remain. The road may still be uncertain. The voice may continue asking what lies ahead. Take the step anyway. The path does not need to be completely visible. It only needs to be visible enough for your next honest move. And when your mind demands certainty once again, remind it gently that you do not need a promise from the future. You need trust in the person who will meet it. Chapter 6. Stop asking fear for permission to live your life. There is a quiet habit that keeps millions of people trapped inside overthinking, yet most of them never recognize it. Before they speak, decide, begin, leave, trust, rest, or move forward, they wait for fear to give them permission. They tell themselves they will take action when they feel ready, speak when they feel confident, leave when they no longer feel attached, begin when every doubt disappears, and choose themselves when guilt finally becomes silent. They continue waiting for a perfect emotional moment in which courage feels natural and uncertainty no longer exists. That moment rarely comes. Fear was never designed to give you permission to outgrow it. It will not calmly step aside and announce that you are finally ready to live differently. It will create another reason to delay. It will remind you of what went wrong before, exaggerate what could go wrong next, and ask for one more day of preparation. When that day arrives, it will ask for another. This is how years disappear. Not always through dramatic failure, but through quiet postponement. A person does not suddenly wake up and decide to abandon their life. They slowly delay it. They postpone the conversation, the application, the boundary, the project, the healing, and the difficult decision. They keep promising themselves that they will begin when their mind feels calmer, but the mind often becomes calmer after movement, not before it. You may be waiting for confidence to create action, while confidence is waiting for action to create evidence. You may be waiting for fear to disappear, while fear is waiting for you to show that you can move despite its presence. You may be waiting to trust yourself, while self-trust is built only through decisions you make and promises you keep. The voice inside your head wants you to believe that hesitation is wisdom. Sometimes hesitation is wise. There are situations that require patience, research, and careful judgment, but there are also times when hesitation becomes a hiding place. You already know what needs to be done, yet you continue analyzing because action would require discomfort. This is the point where thinking stops serving you. It begins protecting you from growth. Imagine standing before a door you have wanted to open for years. Behind that door may be a new career, a healthier relationship, a difficult truth, a stronger identity, or a life in which you no longer apologize for existing. Your hand rests on the handle, but the voice inside your head begins speaking. What if you are not ready? What if people judge you? What if you make the wrong decision? What if you lose what you already have? What if the person you become is not accepted by the people who are comfortable with who you are now? The door remains closed, not because it is locked, but because fear has convinced you that uncertainty is a warning. The truth is that every new life begins with an uncertain door. You do not know exactly what will happen when you leave what is familiar. You do not know who will understand your changes, which plans will succeed, or how many times you will need to adjust. But remaining where you are is also a decision, and that decision carries consequences. Overthinking usually examines only the risks of moving. It rarely examines the risks of staying. What happens if you remain silent for another year? What happens if you continue tolerating what is breaking your confidence? What happens if you delay the dream until the energy that once inspired you becomes regret? What happens if you keep asking others to approve a life they will never have to live? What happens if the safest choice slowly becomes the choice that destroys you? Fear speaks loudly about the pain of change, but it remains strangely quiet about the pain of remaining unchanged. This is why you must learn to question not only what may happen if you act, but what will continue happening if you do not. Every avoided decision is still a decision. Every boundary you refuse to set teaches people that the current behavior is acceptable. Every truth you hide teaches your inner voice that your needs are too dangerous to express. Every promise you repeatedly break teaches your mind that your words cannot be trusted. Every dream you postpone teaches fear that one more warning is enough to control you. This is how self-trust weakens. It does not disappear in a single moment. It is slowly damaged each time you abandon your own judgment to avoid temporary discomfort. Perhaps you have experienced this. You decide that tomorrow you will wake up early, begin working, exercise, write, study, or finally take care of something you have delayed. Tomorrow arrives, and the voice offers a reason to wait. You are tired. The timing is wrong. You need more motivation. You deserve one more day of rest. You accept the excuse. The action itself may appear small, but the message sent to your mind is powerful. Your mind learns that your intentions are negotiable. It learns that discomfort can cancel your promises. It learns that the fearful voice has greater authority than the person making the decision. Then you wonder why confidence feels weak. Confidence cannot grow where your word has no weight. You do not build self-trust by telling yourself that you are powerful. You build it by becoming someone your own mind can rely upon. When you say you will do something, you begin. When you say you will stop returning to a harmful situation, you protect the decision. When you say you will rest, you rest without turning it into guilt. When you say you will speak honestly, you do not abandon yourself the moment tension appears. The promises do not need to be enormous. In fact, small promises are often more powerful because they are repeated frequently. Wake up when you said you would. Complete one important task before distraction takes control. Walk for 10 minutes. Put the phone away. Keep one boundary. Speak one honest sentence. Leave one message unanswered until you are calm enough to respond wisely. Each kept promise becomes evidence. Your mind begins saying, when this person makes a decision, they follow through. That person is you. Self-trust is not something you wait to feel. It is something you prove. This is why constantly asking others for reassurance can become dangerous. At first, reassurance feels comforting. You are uncertain, so you ask someone you trust whether everything will be okay. They tell you that it will. Your body relaxes, and for a few moments the fear becomes quiet. Then the doubt returns. You ask again. Perhaps you ask another person, search online, watch another video, reread old messages, or examine the situation from a different angle. Each answer gives temporary relief, but none creates lasting certainty. Soon, you are no longer searching for wisdom. You are searching for emotional permission. The mind becomes dependent on external voices because it no longer trusts its own ability to evaluate reality. You may ask, do you think they are angry with me? Do you think I made the right decision? Do you think I can succeed? Do you think I should leave? Do you think I am overreacting? There is nothing wrong with asking for perspective. Wise people seek advice. The problem begins when no answer is ever enough. You continue asking until someone finally gives you the answer that reduces fear. Then you treat temporary relief as truth. But another person's confidence cannot permanently replace your own. They may tell you that everything will work, yet they cannot guarantee the future. They may tell you to stay, but they do not experience what you experience. They may tell you to leave, but they will not carry every consequence. They may believe in your ability, but their belief cannot become your foundation unless you begin building evidence for yourself. At some point, you must stop asking the world to make decisions that belong to you. This can feel frightening because responsibility removes the comfort of blame. When someone else chooses, you can later say they guided you incorrectly. When you choose, you must accept that the outcome belongs partly to you. But responsibility is not punishment, it is power. The same responsibility that makes you accountable also makes you capable of changing direction. It reminds you that your life is not a waiting room where you sit until someone arrives with instructions. You are allowed to gather information, listen carefully, and then make the decision that most honestly reflects your values. There may be consequences, there may be mistakes, there may be moments when you look back and wish you had chosen differently. But even mistakes can strengthen self-trust when you respond to them with honesty. Self-trust does not mean believing that every decision you make will be perfect. It means believing that when you are wrong, you will admit it, learn, repair what can be repaired, and choose more wisely next time. People who do not trust themselves are not always afraid of making mistakes. They are often afraid they will not recover from them. They imagine one wrong decision becoming permanent destruction. They treat every choice as though the entire future depends on it. This makes ordinary decisions feel unbearable, but life is not usually that fragile. You can change jobs again. You can leave a city. You can end a project. You can apologize. You can rebuild. You can learn what you did not know. You can admit that the direction no longer fits. Some choices carry serious and lasting consequences, and they should be approached carefully. But many choices are not final doors. They are experiences that reveal information you could never gain through thought alone. Action teaches what analysis cannot. You may wonder for years whether you are capable, but one attempt can give you more truth than 1,000 imaginary conversations. You may study whether a relationship is healthy, but observing how the person responds to a clear boundary may reveal the answer. You may question whether a new path suits you, but taking one practical step can create clarity. Thought imagines, action reveals. This is why fear often keeps you inside thought. As long as you remain in imagination, nothing is tested. Your negative beliefs remain protected. If you never try, you never have to discover that fear was wrong. If you never speak, you never have to learn that some people may listen. If you never leave, you never discover that peace was possible outside the familiar pain. Fear does not always protect you from failure. Sometimes it protects itself from being disproven. The voice inside your head may have spent years telling you that you are weak, incapable, socially awkward, unworthy, undisciplined, or destined to fail. Every avoided action allows that story to remain unchallenged. But the moment you act, reality enters the conversation. You may speak while nervous and discover that your voice does not disappear. You may set a boundary and discover that guilt passes. You may begin imperfectly and discover that skill grows through practice. You may spend time alone and discover that loneliness is not the same as abandonment. You may fail and discover that the world continues. You may succeed and discover that the voice had underestimated you. This is how the mental prison begins cracking, not through one inspirational sentence, but through direct experience. The voice says, you cannot, you act. Reality says, you just did. The voice says, you will not survive rejection. You face rejection. Reality says, it hurt, but you are still here. The voice says, if you stop pleasing everyone, you will be alone. You begin protecting your peace. Reality says, some people left, but the right connections became clearer. Evidence is more powerful than argument. You can spend hours trying to convince yourself that you are strong, or you can complete one difficult action and allow your nervous system to witness your strength. This is why courage must become practical. Courage is not a feeling that descends upon you during a dramatic moment. It is a pattern of behavior. It is choosing the honest action while fear continues speaking. It is refusing to let emotional discomfort become the final decision maker. You may feel afraid and still act with courage. You may feel uncertain and still act with wisdom. You may feel guilty and still protect a necessary boundary. You may feel unmotivated and still keep your promise. You may feel sad and still continue caring for your life. Feelings are real, but they are not always instructions. This is one of the most important lessons you can learn. Many people organize their lives around temporary emotions. They work only when motivated, speak only when confident, leave only when anger becomes stronger than attachment, and rest only when exhaustion finally forces them. As a result, their life remains controlled by whatever feeling is loudest. Emotional maturity begins when you can feel one thing and choose another. You can feel fear and choose movement. You can feel anger and choose restraint. You can feel sadness and choose self-care. You can feel the desire to return and choose distance. You can feel the urge to delay and choose discipline. This does not mean suppressing emotion. It means allowing emotion to exist without handing it complete authority. Imagine a car filled with passengers. Fear may be sitting inside. Regret may be speaking loudly from the back seat. Doubt may be telling you to turn around. These passengers can express their concerns, but they do not control the steering wheel. You are the driver. You listen when a warning contains wisdom. You continue when the warning is only an old pattern. You may not control who enters the vehicle, but you control the direction. The voice inside your head becomes dangerous when it moves from passenger to driver. It begins choosing where you go, who you trust, what you attempt, and how small your life must become. You slowly forget that the steering wheel was ever yours. Taking control back may feel unfamiliar. At first, fear may become louder. When an old pattern no longer receives obedience, it often increases its pressure. The mind may create stronger doubts, more vivid disaster scenes, or urgent demands for reassurance. Do not assume this means the new direction is wrong. It may simply mean the old pattern is losing power. When someone is accustomed to controlling you, your first boundary often produces resistance. Your mental patterns behave similarly. They expect your attention, compliance, and fear. When you stop feeding them, they protest. This is why the beginning of change can feel worse before it feels better. You stop checking a message repeatedly and anxiety rises. You refuse to seek reassurance and doubt becomes louder. You begin a task without feeling ready and every insecurity appears. You spend time in silence and the thoughts you avoided begin surfacing. This is not proof that you should return to the old behavior. It is the discomfort of withdrawal from a pattern that once gave temporary relief. Checking reduced uncertainty for a moment. Reassurance softened fear temporarily. Avoidance prevented immediate embarrassment. Overthinking created the illusion of control. When you remove these habits, the mind notices the absence of its usual escape. It must learn that discomfort can rise and fall without being rescued. This is where patience becomes essential. The urge to return to the old pattern may feel powerful, but an urge is not permanent. It rises like a wave, reaches a peak, and begins falling when it is not continuously fed. You do not need to defeat the urge. You need to outlast it. When you feel the need to check, pause for 10 minutes. When you want reassurance, write down what you already know. When you want to delay, work for 5 minutes. When you want to return to someone who repeatedly hurts you, remember why distance became necessary. When you want to escape uncomfortable emotion, stay with your breath long enough to prove that the feeling cannot destroy you. These moments appear small, but they are where the brain is retrained. Each time you tolerate an urge without obeying it, you weaken the connection between discomfort and automatic behavior. You teach your mind that anxiety does not require checking, doubt does not require reassurance, and loneliness does not require returning to what broke you. This is real control. Control is not preventing every emotion from appearing. It is creating space between emotion and action. Inside that space, your future is decided. Without the space, your patterns make the decision before your wisdom has the chance to speak. You receive a message and immediately react. You feel rejected and immediately withdraw. You feel uncertain and immediately ask for reassurance. You feel lonely and immediately return to the familiar. A pause changes everything. The pause may be one breath. It may be 1 hour. It may be a night of sleep before answering. It may be walking away from the screen until your body becomes calmer. The pause allows your nervous system to leave survival mode. It gives the wiser part of you time to enter the conversation. Not every message deserves an immediate reply. Not every emotion deserves an immediate decision. Not every thought deserves immediate investigation. Urgency is one of fear's favorite disguises. It tells you that you must solve the problem now, defend yourself now, ask for reassurance now, make the decision now, or prevent the imagined disaster now. But many situations become clearer when urgency is removed. The anxious mind believes delay will create danger. The wise mind knows that a calm response is often stronger than a quick one. When you are emotionally activated, your perception narrows. You search for threats, interpret uncertainty negatively, and react to protect yourself. This is useful during real danger, but harmful during ordinary conflict, decision-making, and relationships. A temporary emotional state should not be allowed to write permanent consequences. Do not end something important during a moment of rage unless immediate safety requires it. Do not return to something harmful during a moment of loneliness. Do not abandon your future during a moment of exhaustion. Do not define your worth during a moment of rejection. Let the storm pass before deciding what the landscape truly looks like. This does not mean ignoring what you feel. Your emotions carry information. Anger may reveal a crossed boundary. Sadness may reveal loss. Anxiety may reveal uncertainty. Guilt may reveal either a genuine mistake or an old habit of pleasing others. The emotion is information. It is not always a verdict. You must learn to interpret it. Ask, what is this feeling trying to tell me? Then ask, is the message based on present reality, or is an old wound speaking? Anger may say, something important has been violated. Fear may say, I remember being hurt. Guilt may say, someone is disappointed because I finally said no. Loneliness may say, I miss connection. Not necessarily, I should return to the wrong person. A feeling can be valid while the action it suggests is harmful. You can honor loneliness without reopening a damaging relationship. You can honor anger without becoming cruel. You can honor fear without allowing it to shrink your life. You can honor sadness without believing happiness is gone forever. This is the balance many people never learn. They either obey every emotion or try to silence every emotion. One creates chaos, the other creates disconnection. Wisdom listens without surrendering. The voice inside your head may not know this balance. It may treat every feeling as evidence. When you feel anxious, it declares that something is wrong. When you feel guilty, it says you must have made a bad decision. When you feel lonely, it tells you the person you left was your only chance at connection. But feelings often follow change before they understand change. You may set a healthy boundary and still feel guilty because guilt was trained into you. You may leave a toxic environment and still miss it because familiarity creates attachment. You may begin a better life and still feel uncomfortable because peace feels unfamiliar after years of chaos. Do not measure the correctness of every decision by the emotion that immediately follows it. Some right decisions hurt at first. Some wrong decisions feel relieving at first. Avoidance feels good immediately because it removes pressure, but it often creates regret later. Discipline may feel difficult immediately, but it creates strength later. Returning to a familiar person may soothe loneliness tonight, but reopen pain tomorrow. Maintaining distance may hurt tonight, but protect your future. Your mind prefers immediate relief. Your wisdom must protect long-term peace. This is where discipline becomes an act of self-respect. Discipline is not punishment. It is the ability to choose what your future needs over what your current impulse demands. When you hear the word discipline, you may imagine harsh routines, exhaustion, and constant pressure. But some of the most important forms of discipline are quiet. The discipline not to respond while angry. The discipline not to explain yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you. The discipline to stop checking what disturbs your peace. The discipline to close the app, put down the phone, and return to your own life. The discipline to walk away from conversations that exist only to drain you. The discipline to keep going when progress is too small for others to notice. The discipline to rest before burnout becomes collapse. The discipline to speak to yourself with honesty rather than cruelty. These choices rebuild the relationship you have with your own mind. Many people want inner peace while continuing habits that train the mind for chaos. They consume endless information, keep contact with people who trigger constant doubt, delay important responsibilities, sleep at irregular times, and allow every notification to interrupt their attention. Then they wonder why the voice inside their head never becomes quiet. Your environment teaches your mind how to behave. A constantly interrupted life creates a constantly interrupted mind. Every notification says, something outside you is more important than what you are doing now. Every hour of mindless scrolling trains comparison. Every argument you reread trains emotional replay. Every unfinished task occupying your memory adds another open loop. Every harmful connection maintained out of guilt keeps the nervous system alert. You cannot create a calm inner world while refusing to examine what repeatedly enters it. This does not mean creating a perfect life. It means becoming more intentional about what you allow to shape your attention. Your attention is not unlimited. Every thought, person, screen, conversation, and worry demands a portion of it. When too many things receive access, your mind becomes crowded. Important thoughts compete with meaningless noise. You feel exhausted without understanding why. Mental exhaustion is not always caused by doing too much. Sometimes it is caused by thinking about too many unfinished, uncontrollable, and unnecessary things. You are mentally responding to messages you never send, rehearsing conversations that never happen, imagining outcomes you cannot control, following the lives of people you do not know, carrying the moods of people who refuse to regulate themselves, trying to understand why someone behaved badly when their behavior has already given you the answer. This is attention without return. The energy leaves you, but nothing meaningful is built. To rebuild control, you must begin asking, does this deserve access to my mind? Not, is this interesting? Not, could this matter? But, does this deserve the amount of life I am giving it? A stranger's opinion may deserve 5 seconds, not 5 days. An old mistake may deserve a lesson, not a permanent room in your identity. A difficult person may deserve a boundary, not endless psychological analysis. A future problem may deserve a plan, not daily panic. A painful memory may deserve compassion, not repeated punishment. This is how mental boundaries are created. People understand physical boundaries because they can see them. A door closes, a distance is created, contact is reduced. Mental boundaries are less visible but equally important. They determine how long you allow someone's words to remain inside you, how much attention you give imagined scenarios, and whether another person's mood becomes your responsibility. You may have left someone physically while continuing to carry them mentally. You replay what they said, wonder whether they regret losing you, imagine future conversations, and check whether their life has changed. The relationship ended outside you, but continues inside you. This is why distance alone does not always create freedom. You must also remove the person from the position of emotional authority they still hold within your mind. Their opinion does not deserve to become your identity. Their rejection does not deserve to become your future. Their inability to value you does not deserve to become evidence that you lack value. Their silence does not deserve endless interpretation. You may never understand why someone treated you badly. You may never receive an apology. You may never witness regret. The mind may continue asking questions because it believes understanding will produce closure. But closure does not always arrive through explanation. Sometimes closure is the decision that the behavior itself was enough information. They showed inconsistency. They showed disrespect. They showed that their words and actions did not match. They showed that access to you was being taken for granted. You do not always need to understand the hidden reason behind a pattern before protecting yourself from it. The voice inside your head may argue that perhaps they will change, perhaps you misunderstood, or perhaps one more conversation will finally create clarity. Sometimes people do change. Misunderstandings happen, and conversations help. But overthinking often uses possibility to keep you attached to what evidence has already revealed. Possibility without evidence becomes fantasy. You must learn to evaluate patterns, not promises. A person may apologize beautifully and repeat the same harm. A person may say they care while remaining absent when care requires action. A person may ask for another chance while refusing the work necessary to become different. The mind becomes trapped between what they say and what they repeatedly do. Trust the pattern. This does not mean becoming cold. It means refusing to sacrifice your mental stability to potential that exists only in imagination. You can wish someone well without allowing them continued access. You can forgive without returning. You can understand their pain without volunteering to become its victim. You can love someone and still recognize that the relationship is destroying your peace. The voice inside your head may call this selfishness because it learned that love means endless tolerance. But love without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. Compassion without wisdom becomes permission for harm. You are allowed to protect the mind you must live inside for the rest of your life. This responsibility belongs to you. Others may apologize after damaging your peace, but you are the one who must spend the night recovering from the mental noise. Others may speak carelessly, but you are the one who carries their words into the next day. Others may create chaos and move on, while your nervous system remains activated. This is why access to you must become earned, not through perfection, but through consistency, honesty, respect, and responsibility. The same is true for your own thoughts. A thought should not receive authority simply because it arrives. It must be examined. Does it reflect evidence? Does it help you respond wisely? Does it guide useful action? Or does it create fear without direction? Thoughts that repeatedly fail these questions should lose influence. You would not continue trusting an advisor whose predictions were wrong every day. Yet fear predicts disaster constantly, and you continue treating it as an expert. Remember how many fears never happened. Remember how many situations were easier than you imagined. Remember how many nights you suffered over futures that never arrived. Fear speaks confidently. But confidence is not accuracy. The voice inside your head may say, "This time is different." Perhaps it is. But you will respond to reality when reality arrives. You do not need to suffer every possible version in advance. This is another form of self-trust, refusing to emotionally live through events before they happen. Suppose an important conversation is coming. Preparation may be wise. You decide what needs to be said. Identify your boundary and consider how you will remain calm. After that, continued rehearsal often stops being preparation. It becomes self-torture. You imagine every response, every insult, every misunderstanding, every possible ending. Your body experiences the conversation dozens of times before it occurs once. Then the real conversation may be completely different. Preparation should lead to readiness. If it leads only to increasing fear, it has become overthinking. Give preparation a limit. Write what matters. Choose the action, then return to life. You do not need to mentally attend tomorrow's meeting all night. You do not need to answer questions nobody has asked. You do not need to defend yourself against accusations nobody has made. The mind believes constant rehearsal will create control, but often it only creates exhaustion that makes the real moment harder. Your energy belongs in the moment where action is possible. This moment. If there is something you can do now, do it. If there is nothing you can do now, give yourself permission to stop. That permission must come from you, not from fear. Fear will say that resting is irresponsible. It will tell you that one more hour of thinking may reveal the answer. It will make stillness feel dangerous because stillness removes the illusion of control. But rest is not abandonment. A mind without rest becomes less accurate. It becomes more emotional, more negative, and more likely to interpret uncertainty as danger. Exhaustion does not make you more prepared. It makes you more vulnerable to the voice you are trying to quiet. You must stop treating rest as a reward earned only after every problem is solved. Every problem will never be solved. There will always be another task, another concern, another unanswered question. If rest requires complete completion, you will remain permanently exhausted. Rest is maintenance. It allows judgment to return. It allows emotions to settle. It allows the brain to process experiences rather than endlessly collect them. You do not apologize for charging a device whose energy is empty. Stop apologizing for restoring your own. The voice inside your head may connect worth to productivity. It tells you that if you are not working, solving, improving, or helping someone, you are wasting time. This creates a life in which even peaceful moments become guilty. You sit down, but the mind lists everything unfinished. You take a break, but the mind compares you to someone working harder. You spend time with people you love, but part of your attention remains attached to tomorrow's responsibilities. Your body rests, your mind does not. True rest requires mental permission to be where you are without trying to earn the moment. You are allowed to sit without producing. You are allowed to enjoy without documenting. You are allowed to be unavailable. You are allowed to leave some questions unanswered until tomorrow. A life cannot be fully experienced while every moment is treated as preparation for the next. This is one of the deepest forms of overthinking. Living as though the present is never enough. The mind is always reaching ahead. During work, it thinks about rest. During rest, it thinks about work. During conversations, it plans responses. During success, it fears losing success. During peaceful seasons, it prepares for pain. The body is always somewhere the mind has already left. Returning to the present sounds simple, but it is an act of rebellion against fear. Fear lives mainly in the future, and regret lives mainly in the past. The present gives them less space. Right now, in this exact moment, what is actually happening? Not what could happen, not what happened before. What is happening now? Perhaps you are sitting safely. Perhaps you are breathing. Perhaps there is a problem, but it is not attacking you in this second. Perhaps there is uncertainty, but no immediate decision is required. This question separates reality from mental projection. The voice may say that the future is dangerous. The present may say that you are safe enough to take one calm breath. Begin there. You do not need to create a peaceful life in one day. Create one peaceful minute, then another. The mind will wander. Bring it back. The voice will create a scenario. Notice it and return. A memory will appear. Acknowledge it and return. This repetition is not failure, it is training. Every return strengthens attention. You may believe that a powerful mind is one that never becomes distracted, anxious, or uncertain. But a powerful mind is one that has learned how to return without turning distraction into identity. It notices the drift and comes back. It notices fear and comes back. It notices comparison and comes back. It notices old pain and comes back. The return becomes faster, gentler, and more natural. Eventually, the voice inside your head may still speak, but it no longer takes you as far away from yourself. This is the transformation you are building. Not silence through force, silence through reduced obedience. The voice becomes quieter because it is no longer rewarded with hours of attention. It makes a prediction, but you continue the task. It produces doubt, but you keep the boundary. It brings back the past, but you do not reopen the chapter. A voice that does not control behavior begins losing authority. You prove this authority loss every time you act according to values rather than fear. Your values are the principles that should guide your life when emotions become loud. Honesty, respect, discipline, compassion, courage, loyalty, growth, peace, responsibility, dignity. When a decision feels confusing, ask which option reflects the person you are trying to become, not which option removes discomfort fastest, not which option pleases everyone, not which option protects you from every possible criticism. Which option reflects your values? Perhaps honesty requires a difficult conversation. Perhaps dignity requires distance. Perhaps responsibility requires admitting you were wrong. Perhaps compassion requires forgiveness. Perhaps self-respect requires refusing another chance to someone who has already received many. Perhaps courage requires beginning before confidence arrives. Values create direction when feelings create confusion. You may still feel afraid, but you know what honesty requires. You may still feel attached, but you know what dignity requires. You may still feel tired, but you know what responsibility requires. This does not make every choice easy. It makes the reason for the choice clearer. The voice inside your head often tries to confuse you by producing endless hypothetical possibilities. Values return you to something simpler. What kind of person do I want to be in this moment? Not forever, not for every future situation. In this moment, do you want to react or respond? Avoid or begin? Attack or communicate? Abandon yourself or protect your truth? The future is built from these small identity decisions. You become confident by choosing courageous actions. You become disciplined by keeping difficult promises. You become peaceful by reducing access to unnecessary chaos. You become trustworthy by telling yourself the truth and living according to it. Identity follows repeated behavior. Do not wait to feel like a different person before behaving differently. Behave differently, and the new identity begins forming. The voice may say, but this is not who you are. Perhaps it is not who you were. That does not mean it cannot become who you are. You are not required to remain loyal to an identity built during survival. You may have learned to be silent because speaking once felt unsafe. You may have learned to please people because rejection felt unbearable. You may have learned to expect the worst because disappointment arrived without warning. These patterns helped you survive something. But survival patterns should not automatically become lifelong personalities. You are allowed to update the way you live. You can become someone who speaks, someone who chooses, someone who leaves, someone who rests, someone who trusts slowly but honestly, someone who no longer turns every emotion into a crisis. The old identity may resist because change feels like betrayal. You may feel guilty for no longer being available in the same way, no longer apologizing immediately, or no longer accepting treatment you once tolerated. But growth often disappoints people who benefited from your lack of boundaries. Their disappointment does not automatically mean your growth is wrong. Some people will call your peace distance because they preferred your constant availability. They will call your boundaries selfish because your self-abandonment was convenient. They will call your confidence arrogance because your insecurity made them comfortable. You must decide whether you will return to your old identity to protect other people from adjusting. The voice inside your head may use their reactions as evidence that you are becoming a bad person. Examine your behavior honestly. Are you acting cruelly, or are you simply no longer over-explaining? Are you neglecting responsibility, or are you refusing responsibility for everyone's emotions? Are you becoming cold, or are you becoming careful about where your energy goes? Not every accusation deserves guilt. Sometimes guilt is simply the feeling of breaking an old pattern. You must learn the difference between corrective guilt and conditioned guilt. Corrective guilt appears when you have genuinely violated your values. You lied, harmed, betrayed, neglected, or acted unfairly. This guilt can guide repair. Conditioned guilt appears when you protect yourself in a way others dislike. You say no, take space, rest, disagree, or choose a different direction. This guilt does not always mean you did something wrong. It may mean you did something unfamiliar. Ask whether repair is required. If yes, take responsibility. If no, allow the guilt to pass without reversing the boundary. This is another moment where self-trust is formed. You listen to your conscience without allowing every uncomfortable emotion to control you. The strongest inner voice is neither cruel nor permissive. It does not excuse every mistake, but it also does not destroy you for being human. It tells the truth and points toward correction. It says, "That was not your best behavior. Apologize and change it." It says, "You are afraid, but avoidance will make this harder." It says, "You miss them, but missing them is not a reason to return." It says, "You are tired. Rest before making a decision." It says, "You have thought enough. Now act." This voice must be built deliberately because the fearful voice has had years of practice. Begin noticing how you speak to yourself after mistakes. These moments reveal the quality of your inner leadership. Do you call yourself stupid, hopeless, weak, or incapable? Do you turn one failure into evidence that you will never change? Cruelty may create short-term urgency, but it damages long-term trust. If every mistake is met with attack, the mind begins avoiding challenges. It becomes safer not to try than to risk another internal punishment. You cannot build courage inside an environment of constant self-humiliation. A good leader does not ignore failure. A good leader evaluates what happened, identifies what must improve, and prepares the next attempt without destroying the person responsible. Become that leader within yourself. Say, "This did not go well. What can I learn?" Say, "I broke my promise today. How will I make tomorrow easier?" Say, "I reacted emotionally. What pause can I create next time?" Say, "I returned to an old pattern. What triggered it?" These questions create movement. Insults create shame. Shame often creates more of the behavior you are trying to end because pain seeks relief. You fail, attack yourself, feel worse, and return to the habit that temporarily comforts you. Then the cycle repeats. Compassion interrupts the cycle by giving you enough safety to examine behavior honestly. Compassion does not mean saying everything is fine. It means saying change is possible without hatred. You are more likely to keep promises to someone you respect than someone you constantly abuse. The same is true internally. When you begin respecting yourself, discipline becomes less like punishment and more like protection. You stop staying awake with thoughts that can be handled tomorrow because you respect your body. You stop returning to harmful people because you respect your peace. You stop abandoning goals at the first discomfort because you respect your future. You stop accepting every criticism because you respect your own judgment. Self-respect is practical. It is not simply feeling good about yourself. It is behaving as though your time, energy, body, attention, and future have value. The voice inside your head may say you are not worthy of this respect because of past mistakes. But respect is not a prize awarded only to perfect people. It is the foundation required for growth. You do not wait until a plant becomes strong before giving it water. You give it water so it can become strong. Treat yourself with enough respect to create the conditions for change. This does not mean becoming self-centered. A person with healthy self-respect can be generous without disappearing, loving without becoming dependent, and helpful without carrying everyone's life. They give from choice rather than fear. The fearful voice often confuses love with sacrifice. It says you must always be available, always understand, always forgive without change, and always prove that you care. It warns that if you stop giving, people may leave. Some may. But anyone who remains only because you continually abandon yourself was not connected to the healthiest version of you. They were connected to your lack of boundaries. This can be painful to accept. You may discover that when you stop over-explaining, chasing, rescuing, or tolerating, certain relationships become weaker. The mind may tell you to return to your old behavior to prevent loss. But losing a relationship that depends on your self-betrayal is not always a tragedy. Sometimes it is the beginning of recovery. You must stop measuring the health of a relationship only by whether it continues. Some relationships continue for years while steadily damaging both people. Continuation is not proof of connection. Longevity is not proof of respect. Ask what the relationship requires you to become. Does it allow honesty? Does it respect boundaries? Does it encourage growth? Can conflict occur without punishment? manipulation, or silence? Do you feel safe enough to be human, or are you constantly managing your behavior to prevent another person's reaction? A relationship that forces continuous mental rehearsal is costly. You think before every message, analyze every silence, and question whether your needs are too much. You are not connecting, you are performing emotional risk management. The voice inside your head becomes louder in environments where communication is inconsistent. It tries to fill missing information, predict moods, and protect you from sudden pain. You may believe the problem is entirely your overthinking, but sometimes your mind is responding to genuine instability. Not every anxious reaction is irrational. Sometimes it is information about the environment. This is why calming the mind must include changing what repeatedly disturbs it. Breathing techniques cannot make disrespect healthy. Positive thinking cannot turn inconsistency into safety. You cannot meditate your way into trusting someone whose actions continually create doubt. Inner work is powerful, but it should not become a tool for tolerating what requires a boundary. Ask whether your mind is creating danger or responding to a pattern. If evidence is absent, challenge the fear. If evidence is repeated, protect yourself. Wisdom knows the difference. The goal is not to become so calm that nothing matters. The goal is to become calm enough to recognize what truly matters. A quiet mind sees patterns more clearly because it is not constantly reacting. It can notice whether apologies lead to change, whether promises become action, and whether the same pain continues wearing different explanations. This is the strength you are building, not emotional numbness. Clarity. Clarity allows you to say, I care, but this is not healthy. I understand, but I cannot continue accepting this. I forgive, but access will not return. I am afraid, but I will still choose what protects my future. These sentences come from an inner authority that no longer asks fear or other people for permission. At first, speaking from this authority may feel unnatural. Your voice may shake. You may overthink afterward. You may wonder whether you were too harsh, too distant, or too honest. Do not expect a new skill to feel comfortable immediately. Confidence is often shaky before it becomes steady. The first boundary may include too many explanations. The next may be clearer. The first difficult conversation may leave you exhausted. The next may feel more manageable. The first time you refuse reassurance, the anxiety may feel intense. The next time, you may recognize that it passes. Repetition turns courage into familiarity. Eventually, the behavior that once required enormous effort becomes part of your identity. You no longer spend hours deciding whether you deserve peace. You simply protect it. You no longer rehearse every honest sentence. You speak respectfully and allow others to respond. You no longer need 10 opinions before choosing. You listen, evaluate, and trust your judgment. The voice inside your head may still question you, but the questions no longer stop movement. This is what control looks like in real life, not an empty mind, a directed life. You may still overthink occasionally, but you recognize it sooner. You notice when planning becomes panic, when reflection becomes rumination, and when advice-seeking becomes permission-seeking. You return to the question, what is the next useful action? This question is powerful because overthinking deals in endless possibilities, while useful action deals in reality. If you fear a deadline, work on the task. If you fear misunderstanding, communicate clearly. If you fear financial instability, review what you can control. If you fear losing someone, observe the health of the relationship instead of trying to control them. If you fear failure, take a small step that gives you information. If no useful action exists, the next useful action may be rest. Not every moment requires solving. Sometimes the strongest action is refusing to continue a mental argument. Say, I have considered this enough for today, then redirect attention. At first, the thought may return repeatedly. Each time, give the same answer. Do not create a new debate. The mind may send the question in a different form, hoping you will reopen the investigation. What if you missed something? What if you regret stopping? What if thinking a little longer would help? Recognize the pattern. An anxious mind rarely accepts a final answer because it is not seeking information. It is seeking a feeling of complete certainty. You cannot reason your way into a feeling that life does not promise. You can only practice moving without it. This is why recovery from overthinking is not achieved through one perfect insight. It is achieved through repeated behavior. You stop checking, you stop asking, you stop replaying, you stop feeding. The discomfort rises, you remain. The discomfort falls, your brain learns. This learning may be slow because old pathways are strong. But strong does not mean permanent. Every time you choose differently, a new pathway is created. Every time you return to the present, it strengthens. Every time you keep a promise, self-trust deepens. Every time you allow uncertainty without reacting, fear loses a little authority. One day you may face a situation that once would have consumed your entire week. The old voice begins speaking, but something has changed. You hear it without becoming it. You feel the anxiety without building a life around it. You choose one action and continue your day. The thought still appeared, but it did not take your life with it. That is victory. Victory is not the permanent disappearance of every difficult thought. It is the recovery of your time, attention, and choices. You may still remember the past, but it no longer decides the future. You may still fear rejection, but you no longer reject yourself first. You may still experience uncertainty, but you no longer demand guarantees before living. You may still hear criticism, but you no longer allow every voice to become your own. The loudest voice inside your head begins changing. It is no longer the voice saying, "Wait until you are ready." It becomes the voice saying, "Begin carefully." It no longer says, "You cannot handle what happens." It says, "You have handled difficult things before." It no longer says, "Everyone must understand." It says, "Be clear, respectful, and willing to be misunderstood." It no longer says, "Avoid pain at any cost." It says, "Choose the pain that creates growth, rather than the pain that repeats your past." This new voice does not appear magically. You build it. You build it every morning you rise despite yesterday's disappointment. You build it every time you refuse to speak to yourself with cruelty. You build it through boundaries, discipline, honesty, and repeated return. It becomes trustworthy because it is connected to evidence. It remembers not only how you fell, but how you stood. Not only who left, but who remained. Not only what failed, but what the failure taught you. Not only what you fear, but what you value enough to do despite fear. Eventually, you stop asking whether fear approves of your life. You stop waiting for doubt to disappear before making decisions. You stop treating discomfort as proof that you should turn back. You understand that your mind can produce a warning without becoming your ruler. You thank it for trying to protect you, examine whether the warning is useful, and then choose with wisdom. This is the moment your life begins belonging to you again, not to the critic from your past, not to the person who rejected you, not to the imagined audience watching every mistake, not to the fearful voice demanding certainty. To you. You become responsible for the next step. And because you are responsible, you become powerful. The road will not always be clear. Some choices will still frighten you. Some nights will still be noisy. Some memories will still return. But you will no longer interpret their return as defeat. You will recognize them as opportunities to practice the person you are becoming. The old voice will say, "Go back." The wiser voice will say, "You already know what is there." The old voice will say, "Ask everyone what to do." The wiser voice will say, "Listen carefully, then choose." The old voice will say, "Wait until you feel no fear." The wiser voice will say, "Fear can come, but it cannot lead." The old voice will say, "You need permission." The wiser voice will remind you that this is your life. You do not need permission to heal. You do not need permission to leave what repeatedly harms you. You do not need permission to become disciplined. You do not need permission to rest. You do not need permission to speak honestly. You do not need permission to outgrow a version of yourself created by pain. You need courage, patience, and enough self-respect to take the next honest step. The voice inside your head, may continue making suggestions. Let it speak. You are no longer a frightened child required to obey every warning. You are the adult responsible for deciding which warnings contain wisdom and which ones contain old fear. You are the one holding the steering wheel. You are the one protecting the door. You are the one choosing where your attention goes. You are the one writing the future. Fear may sit beside you. It may question the road. It may remind you of every place you once became lost, but it does not get to choose the destination. From this moment forward, stop asking fear whether you are allowed to live. Take the step. Keep the promise. Say the truth. Protect the boundary. Rest when needed. Begin before confidence becomes complete. Your mind may shake. Your voice may shake. Your hands may shake. Move anyway. Because courage was never the absence of a shaking voice. Courage is the decision that the shaking voice will not receive the final word. Chapter 7. The day your mind becomes your servant instead of your master. There will come a moment when the voice inside your head begins speaking in the same old way, but something inside you responds differently. The thought may still predict failure, remind you of the past, question your worth, or demand that you prepare for every possible disaster. Yet instead of following it into another exhausting mental journey, you will pause and recognize what is happening. You will understand that the voice is repeating an old pattern, not announcing an unavoidable future. You will hear the fear without becoming frightened by the fact that fear exists, and you will notice the thought without allowing it to decide what happens next. That moment may appear ordinary to anyone watching you. There may be no dramatic music, no public celebration, and no visible sign that your life has changed. You may simply put down your phone instead of checking another message, begin the task instead of thinking about it for another hour, go to sleep instead of replaying an old conversation, or remain silent instead of defending yourself against someone committed to misunderstanding you. From the outside, it may look like a small decision, but inside your mind a transfer of power has taken place. Fear spoke, you listened, then you chose for yourself. This is the moment the mind begins returning to its proper position. It stops being the ruler that decides your direction and becomes the instrument that helps you think, plan, learn, create, and respond. The thoughts do not disappear, but their authority changes. They can offer information without issuing commands. They can present possibilities without creating prophecies. They can remember the past without turning it into a permanent identity. For years, you may have treated your mind as though it were the final judge of reality. If it produced fear, you assumed danger must be present. If it produced doubt, you assumed the decision must be wrong. If it replayed a mistake, you assumed punishment was still required. If it imagined rejection, you rejected yourself before anyone else had the opportunity. Now you are learning that the mind can be intelligent and still become confused. It can be protective and still become controlling. It can remember accurately while interpreting the memory unfairly. It can present a possibility with such emotional force that you forget possibility is not certainty. Your mind is powerful, but power without direction can become destructive. A river can nourish an entire community when guided through the right channels, but the same water can destroy homes when it has no boundaries. Fire can provide warmth, light, and protection, but it can consume everything when left uncontrolled. Your thoughts carry the same potential. Guided with awareness, they can help you build a meaningful life. Left unquestioned, they can flood your attention, burn through your peace, and convince you to abandon the future before it begins. The purpose of this journey has never been to destroy thought. You need your mind. You need its ability to solve problems, imagine possibilities, understand consequences, remember lessons, and create direction. The goal is not mental emptiness. The goal is mental leadership. Leadership begins when you decide that your thoughts must answer to your values. Fear may tell you to remain silent, but honesty may require you to speak. Doubt may tell you to delay, but discipline may require you to begin. Attachment may tell you to return, but self-respect may require you to keep walking. Anger may tell you to attack, but wisdom may require restraint. Your values become the deeper voice beneath the noise. They do not always speak with urgency. Fear usually demands immediate action because it wants to control the moment before you have time to think clearly. Wisdom often speaks more quietly. It asks you to pause, examine the evidence, consider the long-term consequences, and remember the person you are trying to become. This is why creating a calmer mind is not merely about feeling better. It is about living better. Peace is not an escape from responsibility. It is the condition that allows you to respond with greater accuracy. When the mind is constantly overwhelmed, every problem appears larger, every disagreement feels personal, and every uncertain moment resembles danger. A quieter mind sees proportion. It can distinguish between an inconvenience and a disaster, between criticism and rejection, between discomfort and genuine harm. It can recognize that one difficult day does not erase progress, one person's reaction does not determine your worth, and one imperfect decision does not destroy your future. Overthinking removes proportion. It takes a small event and continues enlarging it until the event occupies your entire mental world. Someone gives a short reply and the mind creates a story of abandonment. You make a mistake and the mind turns it into proof that you are incapable. One plan changes and the mind announces that everything is falling apart. The event may be small, but the mental story is enormous. To regain control, you must learn to return the event to its true size. Ask, what actually happened? Not what you fear happened. Not what it might mean 10 years from now. What happened? Perhaps they replied briefly. Perhaps you made one mistake. Perhaps someone disagreed. Perhaps the plan changed. These facts may still require attention, but facts are usually smaller than the story fear creates around them. Then ask, what is within my control? You may be able to clarify, apologize, adjust, prepare, or choose another direction. You may also discover that nothing useful can be done at the moment. This is where acceptance begins. Acceptance is not passive defeat. It is the refusal to waste energy fighting reality after reality has already arrived. If the rain has begun, arguing with the sky will not keep you dry. You find shelter, open an umbrella, or change your plans. Reality asks for response, not protest. The voice inside your head often protests reality because it believes suffering will somehow force the past to change or the future to become predictable. It says the person should not have left, the opportunity should not have ended, the mistake should not have happened, and life should not have taken that direction. Some of these statements may be understandable. Perhaps the situation truly was unfair. Perhaps someone behaved cruelly. Perhaps you deserved better. But reality does not reverse because your mind continues arguing with it. The pain occurred once. Resistance can make it occur every day. You may have lost something in the past, but overthinking continues demanding payment in the present. It takes your sleep, attention, trust, and ability to experience what still remains. This is why accepting reality is not surrendering your dignity. It is protecting your remaining life from an event that has already taken enough. There is a future version of you waiting beyond the mental argument. That version does not need the past to become different. It has taken the lesson, built the boundary, and redirected the energy. It understands that closure is not always an explanation. Sometimes closure is deciding that you no longer need another answer before moving forward. The voice may continue asking why. Why did they do it? Why did you allow it? Why did life choose this path? Why could things not have been different? Some questions deserve reflection, but there comes a point when the question no longer seeks understanding. It seeks continuation. It keeps the emotional connection alive because moving forward feels like admitting that the story has truly ended. Endings are difficult because even painful situations can become part of identity. You may know yourself as the person waiting for an apology, hoping for someone's return, proving your worth, or trying to fix what another person refused to repair. If you release the story, you must discover who you are without it. This can be frightening. Pain may have become familiar company. The voice inside your head may speak about the wound so often that silence begins feeling empty. You may mistake the absence of emotional chaos for the absence of meaning, but peace can feel empty only when you have become accustomed to noise. At first, a calm life may feel unfamiliar. There are no messages to analyze, no emotional emergencies to solve, no person to chase, and no dramatic situation demanding your attention. You may feel restless because your nervous system has learned to associate intensity with connection and chaos with importance. Do not run back simply because calmness feels strange. Give your body time to understand that peace is not boredom. Peace is space. It is the space where creativity returns, sleep deepens, relationships become healthier, and the future can be built without constant emotional interruption. It may not give you the same rush as chaos, but it gives you something far more valuable: stability. Stability allows you to know who you are on an ordinary day. You are no longer defined by how you respond to emergencies. You begin discovering what you enjoy, what you value, what kind of work matters to you, and how you want your days to feel. Many people know how to survive but do not know how to live without a crisis. They are strong in pain but uncomfortable in peace. They know how to carry everyone, solve problems, and continue under pressure, yet they feel guilty when life becomes quiet. If this describes you, understand that survival was a skill, not your permanent identity. You are allowed to become more than the person who endured. You can become the person who creates, connects, rests, laughs, explores, and experiences a life that is not organized around recovering from harm. The voice may say that you must remain alert because something could go wrong. It may tell you that relaxing will make you vulnerable. This belief often comes from experiences in which pain arrived unexpectedly. The mind decided that if it stayed prepared, watched every detail, and trusted nothing completely, it could prevent another shock. But permanent alertness does not prevent every painful event. It only prevents deep rest. It makes you suffer during safe moments because danger is always being imagined. You may believe vigilance is protecting you, while it is actually causing you to experience life as though the emergency never ended. You must teach your mind that not every peaceful moment is the silence before a storm. Sometimes silence is simply silence. Sometimes a delayed reply means someone is busy. Sometimes a mistake is only a mistake. Sometimes a person's mood has nothing to do with you. Sometimes a good moment is allowed to remain good without being examined for hidden danger. This teaching does not happen through argument alone. It happens through experience. You allow yourself to enjoy something without checking what could ruin it. You remain present during a peaceful conversation instead of imagining how the relationship may end. You complete a day without searching for evidence that something is wrong. At first, the mind may resist. It may say you are being careless. Remind it that presence is not carelessness. You can remain aware without living in fear. You can love while understanding that change is possible. You can trust someone gradually without pretending betrayal is impossible. Healthy trust is not blindness. It is the decision that fear will not destroy connection before reality gives a reason. The voice inside your head may have convinced you that expecting the worst will reduce disappointment. It says that if you imagine failure, rejection, or loss in advance, you will be prepared. But expecting the worst does not prevent pain. It causes you to experience pain before the event, during the event if it happens, and after the event through replay. You suffer 3 times. If the feared event never occurs, you still paid an emotional price for something that existed only in imagination. Preparation is useful when it produces action. Pessimism that produces only suffering is not preparation. It is self-punishment disguised as wisdom. A strong mind does not say nothing bad will happen. It says, I do not know what will happen, but I will meet reality when it arrives. This sentence contains both honesty and confidence. It does not deny uncertainty. It refuses to worship it. You have already survived moments you once believed would break you. You have lived through days when your heart felt too heavy, nights when your thoughts refused to become quiet, and endings you could not imagine accepting. Yet here you are, listening, learning, and considering another way to live. Your survival is evidence, but the voice often presents only the pain. It reminds you how afraid you were without reminding you that fear passed. It shows you the moment you fell without showing you how you stood again. It remembers the person who left, but ignores the strength you discovered afterward. You must become a better historian of your own life. Remember the complete story. Yes, you struggled. You also adapted. Yes, you were hurt. You also learned. Yes, you made mistakes. You also became wiser. Yes, some people misunderstood you. Others understood you without requiring endless explanation. Your life contains more than the evidence fear selects. Begin collecting evidence of strength deliberately. Notice the times you choose calm over reaction, complete a task despite doubt, and protect a boundary despite guilt. These moments may appear small, but they are reshaping the identity your mind carries. Identity changes slowly because the mind believes what is repeatedly demonstrated. You may say that you are disciplined, but if your actions repeatedly follow impulse, the words have little influence. You may say that you trust yourself, but if every decision is handed to someone else, your brain receives different evidence. Therefore, become careful with the promises you make to yourself. Do not promise a complete transformation tomorrow. Promise one action you can honor. If you want to become calmer, promise to pause before one emotional response. If you want to become disciplined, promise to begin one task at a specific time. If you want to become stronger, promise not to reopen one door that has repeatedly harmed you. If you want to sleep more peacefully, promise to write down tomorrow's concerns before entering bed. Small promises kept consistently become stronger than large promises repeatedly broken. The mind watches what you do. Each kept promise says, "My decisions matter." Each respected boundary says, "My peace matters." Each completed action says, "Fear is not in control." Over time, these messages become the foundation of a new inner voice. This voice does not flatter you. It tells the truth. It does not say you are perfect. It says you are responsible. It does not say you will never fail. It says failure will not prevent another attempt. It does not say everyone will love you. It says rejection will not erase your worth. It does not say the road will become easy. It says you will become more capable of walking it. This voice can be trusted because it does not depend on fantasy. It is grounded in action, experience, and evidence. Building this voice requires changing how you respond after difficult days. Many people destroy progress because they interpret one mistake as proof that change is impossible. They follow a routine for 2 weeks, miss one day, and abandon everything. They maintain a boundary, answer one emotional message, and decide they are weak. They experience a week of mental peace, overthink one situation, and believe they have returned to the beginning. This is perfectionism wearing the mask of disappointment. Perfectionism tells you that progress counts only when it is uninterrupted. But no meaningful transformation occurs in a perfectly straight line. Life changes, energy changes, stress returns, old patterns reappear. The important question is not whether you ever slip, it is how quickly you return. A person who returns after one day is stronger than the person who spends a month punishing themselves for the mistake. The punishment creates no progress. The return does. Learn to recover without drama. Notice what happened. Take responsibility. Adjust the environment. Begin again. Do not create an identity around the interruption. You may have returned to an old thought loop. That does not make you an overthinker forever. It means a familiar pathway became active under pressure. Now you have another chance to practice the new response. The voice may say, "Nothing has changed." Answer with evidence. You noticed sooner. You reacted less strongly. You avoided fewer hours of replay. You understood what triggered the pattern. You returned more gently. That is change. Progress often becomes visible through reduced duration, reduced intensity, and faster recovery before it becomes visible through complete absence. Perhaps a thought that once controlled 3 days now controls 3 hours. Later, it may control 30 minutes. Eventually, it may arrive and leave before affecting your behavior. Celebrate these changes quietly. They are proof that the mind is learning. The brain repeats what it practices. If you practice fear, it becomes efficient at fear. If you practice returning, it becomes efficient at returning. If you practice reacting immediately, reaction becomes automatic. If you practice pausing, the pause begins appearing naturally. At first, the pause requires effort. You must remember to breathe, step away, or wait before responding. Later, your nervous system begins recognizing the pattern. The message arrives, emotion rises, and something inside you says, "Do not decide yet." This inner space is one of the greatest achievements of personal growth. Inside the space, you can choose. Without it, the past chooses for you. Your childhood fear, former rejection, previous betrayal, and old habits respond automatically. You are no longer answering the current situation. You are reacting to every similar pain that came before it. The pause allows you to ask, what belongs to this moment, and what belongs to my history? Perhaps the person in front of you made a mistake, but they are not the person who betrayed you. Perhaps criticism is being offered respectfully, but your body remembers someone who used criticism to humiliate you. Perhaps a loved one asks for space, but your nervous system interprets space as abandonment. Your reaction makes sense when viewed through history, but understanding the history gives you the ability to respond differently. You can say, "This feeling is old, even though the moment is new." This sentence prevents you from forcing the present to pay for the past. It also allows you to protect yourself when the present truly repeats the pattern. Awareness does not mean making excuses for harmful behavior. It means observing clearly. You do not assume every silence is abandonment, but you also do not ignore consistent emotional withdrawal. You do not assume every mistake is betrayal, but you recognize repeated dishonesty. A quiet mind is not naive. It is accurate. It examines patterns without creating patterns that do not exist. This accuracy becomes especially important in relationships because overthinking often grows where communication is weak. When people do not speak clearly, the mind fills the silence. It creates motives, explanations, and futures. The solution is not to become a mind reader. The solution is to communicate. Ask the question respectfully. State what you noticed. Explain what you need. Then observe the response. Healthy communication reduces unnecessary interpretation. It brings reality into the space where imagination was operating. However, communication cannot solve everything. Some people avoid clarity because confusion gives them control. They offer enough attention to keep you waiting, but not enough consistency to create security. They speak beautifully when you leave and behave carelessly when you return. The voice inside your head may continue analyzing them because it believes one more insight will unlock the relationship. Sometimes there is nothing left to understand. The inconsistency is the answer. You do not need to know whether they are confused, afraid, selfish, unhealed, or emotionally unavailable before deciding that the pattern is harming you. Understanding someone's reasons can create compassion, but compassion does not require continued access. This is where a mature mind protects peace without needing hatred. You do not have to transform them into a villain to justify leaving. You can accept that they may have good qualities and still be wrong for your life. You can accept that they may care in their own way and still be incapable of caring in the way a healthy relationship requires. You can stop analyzing their potential and begin respecting their pattern. Overthinking often remains attached to potential because potential allows hope to survive. You imagine who they could become, what the relationship could feel like, and how different everything might be if they finally understood. But you do not live with potential. You live with behavior. The future may change, but you cannot build your present around a version of someone who does not yet exist. This principle applies beyond relationships. You cannot build confidence around the potential effort you may give tomorrow. You build it around the effort you give today. You cannot create peace from the habits you intend to stop. You create it from the habits you stop repeating. The mind loves future promises because they require no immediate discomfort. Tomorrow you will begin. Tomorrow you will set the boundary. Tomorrow you will stop checking. Tomorrow you will forgive yourself. But tomorrow is often another word for avoidance. The future changes only when action enters the present. Do not ask what you will do for the rest of your life. The question may feel too large. Ask what you will do today. Today, can you leave the message unanswered until you are calm? Today, can you complete one task before opening social media? Today, can you stop one mental replay and return to the room around you? Today, can you speak to yourself without insult? A life changes through days. A mind changes through moments. You do not need to master every future situation. You need to practice one better response when the next situation appears. This reduces the pressure perfectionism creates. You are not trying to become someone who never overthinks again. You are becoming someone who knows what to do when overthinking begins. You recognize the signs. Your breathing changes. Your body becomes tense. The same question begins repeating. You search for reassurance. You imagine conversations. You lose awareness of the present. These signs are not reasons to panic. They are signals. When you notice them, slow the process. Name what is happening. My mind is searching for certainty. I am replaying because I want a different ending. I am trying to control someone else's response. I am predicting rather than observing. Naming the pattern turns unconscious behavior into conscious experience. Then return to the body. Overthinking occurs in the mind, but the body can become the bridge back to reality. Feel your feet. Relax your jaw, lower your shoulders, and lengthen your breathing. Do not demand instant calmness. The goal is to show your nervous system that the moment can be experienced without immediate reaction. Then ask whether useful action exists. If yes, identify the smallest honest step. If no, practice release. Release may mean writing the thought down, taking a walk, changing the environment, completing another task, or saying, I will revisit this tomorrow at a specific time. Giving worry a scheduled time can reduce its control. The mind is less likely to repeat something when it trusts that the concern will be addressed. You are not denying it, you are placing it within boundaries. Without boundaries, thought expands into every hour. With boundaries, it becomes one part of life rather than the atmosphere surrounding life. This is why routine can be powerful for a restless mind. A routine reduces the number of decisions fear can turn into debates. You know when you begin work, when you exercise, when you rest, and when you put away the phone. Routine does not remove freedom. It protects attention. Each decision requires mental energy. When every action is renegotiated, the voice receives many opportunities to delay. Should I begin now? Should I wait? Am I tired? Would tomorrow be better? A simple routine answers before the debate begins. At the chosen time you start. Not because motivation is perfect, but because the decision has already been made. This is how discipline silences unnecessary conversation. It replaces repeated negotiation with trusted structure. Your mind may resist structure at first because it is accustomed to following emotion. On a motivated day you do everything. On a difficult day you do nothing. This creates inconsistency, and inconsistency weakens self-trust. A sustainable routine is not built around your highest level of energy. It is built around what you can repeat even when energy is ordinary. Do not create a plan designed to impress your imagination. Create one designed to survive reality. Perhaps you can work for 30 focused minutes, walk for 15 minutes, write one page, or organize one small part of your environment. These actions may seem too small for the voice that wants dramatic transformation, but repetition gives small actions extraordinary power. The mind often prefers dramatic beginnings because they create emotion. Real change prefers quiet repetition because it creates identity. You do not become calm by listening to one powerful idea. You become calm by practicing a better response repeatedly. You do not become disciplined by completing one intense day. You become disciplined by continuing when the day feels ordinary. You do not become self-trusting through one confident decision. You become self-trusting by keeping enough small promises that confidence becomes evidence-based. This is how the voice inside your head is retrained, not through force, through repetition. Every time fear speaks and you choose action, a lesson is recorded. Every time regret appears and you choose the present, a lesson is recorded. Every time uncertainty rises and you refuse reassurance, a lesson is recorded. Your brain learns that the old response is no longer automatic. At first, this may feel exhausting because conscious change requires effort. The old pattern is efficient. It has been practiced for years. The new response feels slow and unnatural. Do not confuse unfamiliarity with wrongness. Learning any new skill feels awkward. The first time you drive, speak a new language, or learn a physical movement, every step requires attention. With repetition, the process becomes natural. Mental habits are no different. One day, the pause will appear without being forced. The thought will arrive, and you will automatically question its certainty. The memory will return, and your mind will recognize that the chapter is closed. The person will attempt to pull you into an old dynamic, and your body will remember the boundary. This is when you will realize that healing has become part of your behavior, not merely an idea you understand. Understanding matters, but behavior completes the transformation. You can understand that a relationship is harmful and still return. You can understand that overthinking is exhausting and still feed it. You can understand that discipline matters and continue delaying. Knowledge opens the door. Practice walks through it. Do not judge yourself for the distance between understanding and action. That distance exists for almost everyone. Simply stop pretending that understanding alone is enough. Ask what action would make the lesson real. If you understand that rest matters, protect a bedtime. If you understand that boundaries matter, say no once. If you understand that your thoughts are not facts, allow one thought to pass without investigation. A lesson becomes part of you when it changes what you do. The voice inside your head may attempt to turn even healing into another source of pressure. It may say you should be calmer by now, that you are not progressing quickly enough, or that others seem stronger. This is overthinking using the language of growth. Do not let self-improvement become another weapon against yourself. You are not a project that must be completed before you deserve respect. You are a human being learning new ways to respond. Growth can be serious without becoming cruel. You can expect responsibility without demanding perfection. You can desire change while appreciating how far you have already come. There will be seasons when progress is rapid, and seasons when survival requires most of your energy. During difficult periods, maintaining one healthy habit may be a victory. Do not compare your healing during a storm to someone else's performance during calm weather. You rarely know the full conditions of another person's life. Comparison takes incomplete information and uses it to judge your complete experience. You see someone's achievement, confidence, relationship, or peace, but you do not see every fear, failure, privilege, sacrifice, or private struggle surrounding it. Your mind creates a false comparison between their visible result and your invisible process. Return to your path. The question is not whether you are ahead of another person. The question is whether your current decisions are moving you toward the life you respect. Progress can be slow and still be real. A tree does not become ashamed because another tree grew faster. Its roots may be reaching through harder ground. It continues taking what light and water are available. Your conditions matter. Your pace may need to be different, but different does not mean impossible. Protect your pace from the voice that turns urgency into discouragement. Some goals require time because the person capable of carrying them must also be built. You are not only creating an outcome, you are developing patience, discipline, judgment, and emotional strength. A delayed result may still be producing a stronger identity. This does not mean using patience as an excuse for inaction. Patience and passivity are different. Patience continues working without demanding immediate reward. Passivity waits without building. Ask whether you are moving, even slowly. If yes, continue. If no, choose one action. The voice may demand a perfect plan, but movement often creates the information required to improve the plan. Begin with what you know. Adjust when you learn more. This principle can free you from endless preparation. You do not need every chapter planned before writing the first page. You do not need complete confidence before speaking the first sentence. You do not need to know whether a goal will succeed before giving it an honest attempt. Many opportunities are lost because people prepare to begin rather than beginning. They organize, research, watch, and imagine. These activities feel productive, but they can become protection from being evaluated by reality. At some point, you must create something imperfect. You must risk being a beginner. The voice may say that your first attempt reveals your true ability. It does not. A first attempt reveals your current practice level. Ability develops through repetition, feedback, correction, and time. Do not turn the beginning into a final judgment. Allow yourself to be seen learning. This may be especially difficult if your worth has been connected to appearing capable. You may avoid new experiences because being a beginner threatens the identity of someone who knows what they are doing. But a person who must always appear capable becomes unable to grow. Growth requires admitting, "I do not know yet." It requires asking questions, making mistakes, and receiving correction. A secure mind does not interpret correction as humiliation. It separates the value of the person from the quality of the current attempt. The work can improve without the self being destroyed. This separation is essential. You are not your performance. Performance provides information. You are not the mistake. The mistake provides instruction. You are not the rejection. The rejection provides direction or evidence of fit. When identity becomes attached to every outcome, life feels dangerous. Every action becomes a test of worth. You must succeed to feel valuable, receive approval to feel lovable, and perform perfectly to feel safe. This is an impossible way to live. Your worth cannot be allowed to rise and fall with every response from the world. The world is inconsistent. People misunderstand, preferences differ, and timing matters. A person may reject your work because it does not fit their need, not because the work has no value. Someone may fail to appreciate you because of their limitations, not because you are unworthy. This does not mean ignoring feedback. It means refusing to turn feedback into identity. Take what is useful, improve what needs improvement, release what reflects only another person's preference. The voice inside your head may replay criticism because criticism feels like danger. It wants to protect you from being hurt again by ensuring you never repeat the behavior. But protection can become paralysis. If every criticism removes your willingness to try, the critic receives control over your future. Examine the source. Was the criticism specific, respectful, and useful, or was it vague, cruel, and intended to diminish you? Not every person deserves equal authority. Advice from someone who understands the path should carry more weight than mockery from someone who has never attempted it. The voice may remember the cruelest comment because emotional pain creates a strong memory. You must deliberately remember the quieter voices that believed in you. Better yet, create evidence through continued action until your own experience becomes stronger than both praise and criticism. External approval is unstable. Today people celebrate you, tomorrow they move their attention elsewhere. If your identity depends on applause, silence will feel like failure. Build satisfaction from alignment. Did you give honest effort? Did you act according to your values? Did you improve? Did you keep your word? These questions create an internal standard that does not require constant audience approval. You can appreciate recognition without becoming dependent upon it. You can learn from criticism without becoming controlled by it. This balance is freedom. The voice inside your head becomes quieter when your direction is no longer negotiated with every opinion. You know what matters, why you are doing it, and what standards guide you. Purpose reduces unnecessary noise. When you do not know what matters, every distraction appears important. Every person's opinion becomes influential. Every opportunity seems urgent. Purpose gives attention a home. Purpose does not need to be one enormous mission. It can be the decision to build a peaceful home, raise children with care, master a skill, create honest work, serve others, or become healthier than the patterns you inherited. A meaningful direction organizes the mind. It allows you to ask, does this deserve energy from the life I am building? Many thoughts lose power when examined through purpose. The imagined argument, online comparison, and strangers' opinion begin appearing smaller. You realize that attention spent on them is attention removed from what matters. This realization does not require you to become serious every moment. Joy, rest, play, and connection are part of a meaningful life. Purpose is not constant productivity. Purpose is conscious direction. Sometimes the most purposeful action is resting enough to continue tomorrow. Sometimes it is calling someone you love. Sometimes it is walking outside and remembering that life is larger than the screen, task, or thought currently occupying your mind. Overthinking narrows awareness. It makes one problem appear like the entire world. Expanding your environment can restore perspective. Step outside, look at the sky, walk beneath trees, listen to ordinary sounds. You do not need to turn nature into a spiritual answer. The simple physical world reminds the mind that reality contains more than thought. The thought may still exist, but it is now one event beneath a wide sky rather than the entire atmosphere of your life. Movement also helps because the body carries what the mind produces. Fear tightens muscles, changes breathing, and prepares for action. When no action occurs, the energy remains. Walking, stretching, and breathing do not solve every problem, but they help the body complete part of the stress response. A calmer body creates conditions for clearer thought. Do not treat physical care as separate from mental peace. Sleep, food, movement, and environment influence the voice inside your head. Exhaustion makes fear louder. Hunger reduces patience. Constant isolation can increase rumination. Continuous screen exposure fills the mind with comparison and stimulation. Sometimes the thought feels philosophical, but the body needs rest. Sometimes you do not need another answer. You need sleep. A tired mind often becomes dramatic. It interprets ordinary challenges as permanent problems. Decisions made after rest may look completely different. Create a rule for yourself. Do not make final judgments about your life during your most exhausted moments. The thought saying everything is hopeless may be speaking through a nervous system that has reached its limit. Rest first, review later. This rule can protect you from many unnecessary decisions. Night magnifies problems because distractions disappear and the brain attempts to process unfinished experiences. Create an ending for the day. Write what remains unfinished. Choose what can wait. Acknowledge what cannot be controlled. Tell your mind that the day is closed. The voice may return, but give it the same calm answer. This is not the time for solving. Repetition teaches boundaries. You may need to say it many times. That is not failure. It is training. Eventually, the mind begins trusting the routine. It knows that worries will be addressed at a healthier time. Trust grows when you consistently respond. This is the deeper relationship you are building with yourself. Your mind becomes calmer because it learns that you will not ignore real problems, but you will also not allow them to consume every hour. You will listen, evaluate, act when action is possible, rest when it is not. This is balanced leadership. An uncontrolled mind either avoids problems or obsesses over them. A directed mind approaches them within boundaries. It can say, I will think about this for 20 minutes, make a decision, and continue. The voice may demand more time, but more time is not always more clarity. After a certain point, the same information begins repeating. Learn to recognize the point of diminishing return. Have you identified the facts? Considered the main consequences? Consulted wisdom when necessary? Chosen the next action? Then stop. There will always be another possible scenario, but you do not need to examine infinity before living. Life rewards responsive people more than perfectly prepared people. You may face something unexpected. You will respond. You may need to change the plan. You will adjust. The ability to adapt is more valuable than the illusion of predicting everything. This adaptability is the confidence you have been seeking, not confidence that the future will obey you. Confidence that you can meet the future without abandoning yourself. Imagine who you become when this confidence deepens. You enter conversations without rehearsing every possible response because you trust yourself to listen and answer. You make decisions without asking everyone for permission because you trust yourself to learn. You begin projects without knowing every step because you trust yourself to adjust. Your life expands, not because fear disappeared, but because its borders no longer define where you are allowed to go. For years, fear may have drawn a small circle around your life and called it safety. Inside the circle, there was no rejection because you rarely risked connection, no failure because you rarely attempted, and no embarrassment because you remained hidden. But there was also no growth, no discovery, no evidence of strength. The circle protected you from pain by protecting you from participation. Taking back control means stepping beyond the circle. You may feel exposed. That is natural. A life fully lived includes vulnerability. You cannot receive love without allowing yourself to be known. You cannot achieve meaningful work without allowing it to be judged. You cannot create change without leaving something familiar. Vulnerability is not weakness, it is the cost of reality. Fear offers imaginary safety. Courage offers real experience. Some experiences will hurt. This audiobook cannot promise otherwise. People may disappoint you. Plans may fail. You may lose things you value. The goal is not to remove every painful possibility. It is to stop allowing the possibility of pain to become the reason you avoid every meaningful possibility. Pain and meaning often share the same door. Love creates the possibility of grief because what matters can be lost. Ambition creates the possibility of failure because meaningful goals are not guaranteed. A closed heart avoids grief, but also avoids connection. An unattempted dream avoids failure, but also avoids achievement. You must decide which risk creates a life you can respect. The voice inside your head may ask for complete protection. Life cannot give it. What life can give you is the opportunity to become someone who remains whole even when outcomes change. Wholeness does not mean you never hurt. It means pain does not erase identity. You grieve without becoming only grief. You fail without becoming only failure. You are rejected without becoming unworthy. The event enters your life but does not become the entire life. This separation is one of the greatest signs of mental freedom. You experience emotions fully without building permanent conclusions around them. Sadness says, "This hurts." Overthinking says, "This will hurt forever." Fear says, "I am uncertain." Overthinking says, "Something terrible is certain." Regret says, "I wish I had chosen differently." Overthinking says, "My life is ruined." Learn to hear the extra sentence. The emotion is often manageable. The story makes it overwhelming. Remove the permanent conclusion. This hurts, but feelings change. I am uncertain, but reality has not spoken. I regret this, but another choice still exists. The mind may resist because it prefers dramatic certainty. Continue choosing accuracy. Accuracy creates hope without denial. You are not saying everything will become easy. You are saying the current feeling does not know the entire future. No emotion knows the entire future. No thought knows the entire future. This is why the voice inside your head cannot be given final authority. It speaks from the present condition, past experience, and incomplete information. You can listen without surrendering. You can say, "I understand why you are afraid," then add, "But fear is not the only information available. There is also evidence. There are values. There is experience. There is the possibility that something may work." A wise decision includes fear, but is not built entirely from it. This is how you become the calmest presence inside yourself. Calm does not mean weak. It means you no longer need to shout internally to create movement. You can direct yourself with clarity. Begin, stop, rest, leave, wait, speak. These words become powerful because you have learned to trust their source. The source is not impulse. It is the deeper self built through reflection, evidence, values, and experience. This is your inner authority. Inner authority does not mean never seeking help. A strong person can ask for guidance without giving away responsibility. They can listen to experts, trusted friends, and people with relevant experience, then make the decision themselves. They do not demand that someone else guarantee the outcome. They understand that advice is information, not permission. Permission comes from accepting responsibility. When you accept responsibility, blame loses some of its attraction. You no longer spend years asking who should have saved you, understood you, or given you the right opportunity. You acknowledge what others did. You also ask what you can do now. This question returns power without denying harm. You may not be responsible for the wound. You are responsible for deciding whether the wound becomes your identity. You may not have chosen the circumstances. You can choose the next response. This is not always fair. Healing often requires work from the person who did not create the damage. But refusing the work does not punish the person who hurt you. It prolongs your connection to what they did. Recovery becomes an act of freedom. Each boundary says, the past will not continue through my choices. Each healthier habit says, the pain stops receiving another generation of my life. Each calm response says, what happened to me will not decide what happens through me. This may be the most meaningful reason to silence the controlling voice. The voice often carries the past forward. It repeats criticism, fear, and patterns learned from people who were also living through their wounds. When you change your inner language, you interrupt the inheritance. You may have grown around people who spoke harshly, expected the worst, or treated anxiety as responsibility. Those patterns entered your mind before you had the ability to question them. Now you can choose what continues. You can become the person who tells the truth without humiliation, prepares without panic, and cares without controlling. Your mind does not have to remain a recording of everything you experienced. It can become a reflection of everything you have learned. This transformation will not always be visible. Others may notice that you react less, explain less, and no longer become consumed by the same situations. Some will call you distant. Others will recognize peace. You do not need everyone to understand. A person accustomed to your anxiety may feel uncomfortable with your calmness. Someone who relied on your constant reassurance seeking may feel less important when you begin trusting yourself. People who benefited from your guilt may resist your boundaries. Their reaction is information. It is not instruction. Examine whether your behavior remains respectful and responsible. If it does, continue. You are not required to return to internal chaos to make others comfortable. This is your mind. You must live inside it every day. Protect it. Protection does not mean avoiding every difficult person or situation. It means becoming selective about access. You can handle challenge without allowing needless chaos. Not every argument deserves participation. Not every accusation deserves defense. Not every invitation deserves acceptance. The voice inside your head may say that silence means weakness. Sometimes silence is the strongest refusal to give attention to something unworthy of it. You do not prove your truth by explaining it endlessly. People committed to misunderstanding you can use every explanation as material for another argument. At some point, clarity has been given, and the conversation has become a demand for surrender. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to say, I have explained my position. Then let the silence stand. The mind may replay the conversation afterward, creating better answers and imaginary victories. Recognize that the event is complete. You do not need to win inside your head. The inner debate gives the other person more access after the external conversation has ended. Close the door mentally. Say, I know what happened. I know what I meant. I will learn what is useful and release the rest. This practice preserves attention. Your attention is your life in usable form. Where it goes, your hours go. Where your hours go, your life is built. Overthinking is expensive because it consumes attention without creating outcomes. It feels active, but often produces nothing. You spend 3 hours imagining a conversation that lasts 10 minutes. You lose a day worrying about a task that requires 1 hour. You sacrifice sleep for a future that does not happen. Begin measuring thought by usefulness. Did this thought produce a decision, action, lesson, or necessary preparation? If not, it may be repetition rather than reflection. You do not need to continue simply because the mind has more to say. The mind can speak forever. Your life cannot wait forever. At some point, close the meeting. Return to action, rest, connection, or the present moment. This is not avoidance when the issue has been addressed appropriately. it is completion. Teach yourself to recognize completion. The message was sent, the task was planned, the apology was made, the boundary was stated, the decision was chosen. Stop reopening what has already been completed because the feeling of certainty did not arrive. Certainty is not always the signal of completion. Sometimes responsibility is complete while emotion remains unsettled. Let emotion catch up. You do not need to reverse the decision because guilt is still present. You do not need to send another message because anxiety remains. You do not need to explain again because they are unhappy. A feeling can remain after the correct action. This is especially important when breaking old patterns. The mind expects relief immediately. When relief does not arrive, it assumes the action was wrong. But new behavior often creates discomfort before freedom. The first nights without checking may feel harder. The first weeks after leaving may feel lonelier. The first boundaries may create more guilt. Continue evaluating reality, not only the immediate feeling. Is the long-term direction healthier? Are you becoming more stable? Is the pattern weakening? Then remain patient. Freedom may arrive gradually. One day you realize hours passed without thinking about the situation. Then an entire day. Then the memory appears without the old emotional force. This is how release often happens. Not through one dramatic goodbye, but through decreasing attention. What you stop feeding eventually changes. The thought may not disappear completely, but it no longer enters with the same authority. It becomes a memory rather than a command. This is what will happen with the voice inside your head. It will still know your fears. It will still attempt old strategies, but you will know it better. You will recognize when it is exaggerating, predicting, comparing, or searching for certainty. You will no longer be impressed by its confidence. You will ask for evidence. You will check your values. You will choose the next useful action. This process becomes natural. The voice says you will fail. You ask, what can I prepare? The voice says, they may leave. You ask, is this relationship healthy today? The voice says, everyone is judging you. You ask, am I acting according to my values? The voice says, you should be further ahead. You ask, what can I improve now? Fear produces vague catastrophe. Wisdom produces specific action. This is how you transform mental noise into direction. Not every fear is useless. Some reveal areas requiring attention. The problem is not fear appearing. The problem is allowing it to remain vague and limitless. Turn fear into a question that can be answered. If you fear financial difficulty, what practical step is available? If you fear poor performance, what skill requires practice? If you fear conflict, what communication needs preparation? If no practical step exists, the remaining fear may need acceptance rather than more planning. You cannot prepare for every possibility. You prepare responsibly, then live. This is the balance. The mind may never be completely satisfied, but satisfaction is not required. You can move with an unsatisfied mind. This may be the greatest secret of all. You do not have to wait until the inner voice agrees. It may continue objecting while you take the step. You begin the work while it says you are not ready. You maintain the boundary while it says you are cruel. You rest while it says you should do more. You speak while it predicts judgment. You discover that the voice can be present without being obeyed. This discovery removes its greatest weapon. The voice relied on your belief that discomfort must be resolved before action. Once you learn to act with discomfort, fear loses the ability to hold you still. You become free not because fear disappears, but because fear can no longer prevent movement. Imagine what becomes possible. Dreams once delayed begin receiving effort. Conversations once avoided become honest. Relationships become clearer because you stop interpreting and start communicating. Your sleep improves because tomorrow is no longer mentally lived at night. Your energy returns because you stop carrying every opinion and imagined outcome. This does not create a life without problems. It creates a person more capable of meeting them. Problems feel different when you trust yourself. You no longer interpret difficulty as evidence that you chose wrong. You understand that every path contains obstacles. You stop searching for a life that never challenges you and begin building the strength to face challenge without losing yourself. This strength becomes quiet. You do not need to announce it. It appears in how little you react to what once controlled you. Someone attempts to provoke you, and you do not give them your entire day. A plan changes, and you adjust. A person leaves, and you grieve without begging them to return. A mistake happens, and you repair it without destroying your identity. These are signs of a mind under wise leadership. The world may still be unpredictable. You are becoming dependable. This is the security you were trying to find through overthinking. You wanted certainty from life. What you needed was trust in yourself. Life may change. People may change. Plans may fail. But you will not abandon yourself. You will listen, learn, and respond. This promise is more valuable than any guarantee the future could offer. Make that promise now. Not that you will never feel fear. Not that you will never overthink. Promise that when fear appears, you will not automatically hand it control. Promise that when you fall into an old loop, you will return without humiliation. Promise that your worth will not be negotiated with every outcome. Promise that you will not sacrifice today to imagine tomorrows. These promises do not require perfection. They require return. You will forget sometimes. Return. You will react sometimes. Repair and return. You will believe the voice temporarily. Notice and return. The return is your practice, your discipline, and your freedom. Eventually, you will stop measuring success by how quiet the mind remains and begin measuring it by how firmly your life continues in the direction you have chosen. The mind may be noisy. The life is still moving. The thought may be fearful. The action is still courageous. This is mastery. Not control over every thought. Control over what happens after the thought. You become the space in which the voice is heard, examined, and placed in perspective. You are larger than the noise. You contain memories without becoming trapped in them. You contain fear without becoming ruled by it. You contain uncertainty without losing direction. The voice inside your head is one part of your experience. It is not the whole of you. You are also the awareness that notices it, the judgment that evaluates it, the courage that moves despite it, and the discipline that returns attention to what matters. Remember this when the voice becomes loud again. Loudness is not authority. Repetition is not truth. Familiarity is not destiny. A thought can be ancient and still be wrong. A pattern can be strong and still be broken. The future does not have to resemble the past simply because the same voice continues speaking. You can write differently. You can respond differently. You can become differently. This is the day your mind begins becoming your servant instead of your master. It serves when it helps you plan without panicking. It serves when it remembers lessons without reopening wounds. It serves when it warns you of real patterns without inventing invisible dangers. It serves when it focuses on the task, solves the problem, creates the idea, and then becomes quiet enough for you to rest. This is what your mind was designed to become, a tool of extraordinary power guided by a human being who knows what matters. That human being is you. You have spent enough time being dragged by thoughts into places you never wanted to go. You have revisited enough conversations, predicted enough disasters, questioned enough of your worth. Now the relationship changes. The voice can speak. You will listen when wisdom is present. You will question when fear is exaggerating. You will act when action is possible. You will rest when the moment requires rest. And you will no longer allow a sentence inside your head to become a prison around your life. Your mind belongs to you. Your attention belongs to you. Your future belongs to you. Take them back. Not through violence against yourself, not through hatred of your thoughts. Take them back through calm authority, through the pause before reaction, through the boundary that remains even when guilt appears, through the task begun before confidence arrives, through the decision to release what cannot be changed. Let this become the new voice within you. A voice that does not promise an easy life but reminds you that you are capable of meeting it. A voice that does not deny pain but refuses to build a permanent identity around it. A voice that does not demand certainty but trusts the next honest step. A voice that says, I may be afraid, but I am still moving. I may not know the entire road, but I can see enough for today. I may hear the old story, but I am writing something new. One day you will look back and realize that the voice did not become silent all at once. It simply became less important than the life you were building. Your purpose became louder. Your discipline became stronger. Your peace became more valuable than another hour of mental argument. The voice remained somewhere in the distance, repeating words that once controlled you, but you had already walked too far forward to return. Keep walking. Let fear call from behind. Let regret remind you of old roads. Let doubt ask whether you are certain. You do not need to answer. The road ahead is not asking for certainty. It is asking for your next step. Take it, then take another. Continue until the voice that once ruled your life becomes nothing more than background noise beneath the sound of the person you have finally chosen to become. As this audiobook comes to an end, remember that the voice inside your head may not become silent overnight. It has been speaking for years, repeating old fears, unfinished conversations, imagined disasters, and beliefs created during painful moments. It has practiced controlling your attention for a long time, so do not judge yourself when it tries to speak again. The next time it tells you that you are not ready, do not begin another argument inside your mind. Take one honest step and allow action to answer. When it reminds you of a mistake, take the lesson without accepting the identity it tries to give you. When it predicts rejection, failure, or disappointment, remind yourself that fear does not know the future, it only knows how to repeat the past. You are no longer required to believe every thought simply because it sounds like your own voice. You have learned that thoughts are not commands, feelings are not permanent conclusions, and uncertainty is not proof that something terrible is coming. You have learned that the mind can create a prison without walls, but you have also learned that awareness can open the door. From this day forward, stop asking fear for permission to live. Stop waiting until every doubt disappears before you begin. Stop sacrificing peaceful nights to problems that cannot be solved until tomorrow. Stop returning to conversations that have already ended and people whose behavior has already given you the answer. Your life is happening now. Not inside the mistake you made years ago, not inside the future your fear keeps imagining, and not inside the opinion of someone who never understood your worth. Your life is in the next decision, the next breath, the next boundary, and the next promise you choose to keep. There will still be difficult days. There will be moments when the old voice returns with frightening confidence and tries to convince you that nothing has changed. But you will recognize it now. You will know that loudness is not truth, repetition is not evidence, and familiarity is not destiny. You may still feel afraid, but fear will no longer hold the steering wheel. You may still experience doubt, but doubt will no longer cancel movement. You may still remember the past, but the past will no longer write your future. This is what taking back control truly means. It does not mean controlling every thought, every person, or every outcome. It means controlling what happens after the thought appears. It means choosing your response before an old pattern chooses it for you. When the voice says, "You will fail," let your discipline answer, "I will learn." When it says they may reject you, let your self-respect answer, "I will not reject myself first." When it says you should return to what hurt you, let your wisdom answer, "Missing something does not mean it belongs in my future." When it says you must solve everything tonight, let your exhausted body hear you say, "Tomorrow can carry what does not belong to this moment." You do not need to become fearless. You need to become trustworthy to yourself. Become the person who keeps small promises, protects necessary boundaries, admits mistakes without self-destruction, and returns after difficult days. Become the person your own mind can rely upon when life becomes uncertain. One day you will notice that a thought which once controlled your entire week remained for only an hour. Later, it may remain for only a few minutes. Eventually, the same voice will speak, but you will be too focused on building your life to follow where it is trying to lead. That is how freedom arrives. Not always through one dramatic moment, but through thousands of quiet decisions. The message you stop checking, the argument you refuse to continue, the task you begin before feeling ready, the boundary you keep even when guilt appears, and the night you finally allow yourself to rest. These choices may seem small, but together they create a new mind, a new identity, and a new life. Do not return to the person you were simply because becoming someone stronger feels unfamiliar. Peace may feel strange when you have spent years living in mental noise. Stability may feel empty when you have become accustomed to chaos. Give yourself time to recognize that calmness is not boredom and silence is not danger. Silence is space. It is the space where your energy returns, your direction becomes clearer, and your real voice can finally be heard beneath everything fear taught you to believe. Your mind was never meant to become your enemy. It was trying to protect you with the only patterns it understood. But you are wiser now. You can thank it for the warning without obeying the fear. You can hear the thought, examine it, and choose another direction. From this moment forward, let your mind serve your values. Let it help you plan without panicking, remember without reopening wounds, and prepare without suffering in advance. Let it become an instrument of focus, creativity, courage, and clear judgment. You have spent enough time surviving imaginary futures, enough time questioning decisions that have already been made, enough time allowing other people's words to continue speaking inside you after they have left, enough time believing that one mistake, rejection, or painful season defined the entire story. The story is not over. There are pages ahead that fear has never seen. There are opportunities it cannot predict, people you have not met, strengths you have not tested, and peaceful moments you cannot imagine from where you are standing now. Do not let an old voice describe a future it has never visited. Keep walking. Walk without needing the whole road to become visible. Walk without demanding that everyone understand. Walk without waiting for confidence to feel complete. The next honest step is enough. This has been Silence the Voice Inside Your Head. May you stop fighting battles that exist only in imagination. May you release the conversations that no longer deserve your attention. May you become disciplined with your focus, patient with your progress, and careful about the voices you allow to shape your identity. And when the old voice returns, as it sometimes will, do not panic and do not begin another war. Listen calmly, question what it says, and remember who now holds the authority. The voice may speak, fear may rise, doubt may knock, but your mind no longer belongs to them. Your attention belongs to you. Your peace belongs to you. Your future belongs to you. Take them back, protect them carefully, and never again allow a fearful thought to decide how much of your life you are permitted to live.